like you mentioned earlier, his ego. He doesn't want to look bad. He wants to be a tough guy. He thinks he can break them. He doesn't understand that the Iranians have thousands of years of resistance under their belt. This is nothing to them. They will continue to figure out a way to survive. This is an ancient culture. And he doesn't get that. My dear friend who just passed, Sam Faddis, is probably one of the best CIA paramilitary officers this country ever produced. He was one of the real ones, one of the few really good guys, just great. About 2 months ago, I had a long chat with him, and he named the general, I don't remember the guy's name, but he's a younger guy who's running covert operations in the United States for Iran. And he said his fear, this is one of the last things he said to me, the last times I spoke to him on the phone. He said his fear was that a cluster, and he said only has to be 5 or 6 guys with Kalashnikovs of these Iranian IRGC types who snuck in through the border under Biden. They've been sitting in wait. They're going to go to one of those substations on the East Coast and or the West Coast of the United States and fire some rounds into the substation. Those substations are poorly defended. Kill the substation. We have to wait years to get them replaced and repaired because they have to come in from China. And in the meanwhile, at least a third or a half of the United States is in blackout. If you don't think that the IRGC is not gaming this out as we go up this insane escalation ladder, then I got some swampland out here in Florida I could sell you. Because I can guarantee you, and that was one of Sam Faddis' last things he said to me, is that is his fear that was keeping him and a lot of former CIA guys up at night, is we don't defend our infrastructure the way we're supposed to physically. So not only are we talking about possibly losing those oil fields, those natural gas fields in the Middle East, but there is a very real possibility as we go up and up that they're going to hit us here because we've been hitting them there.
Yeah. Also, there's the cyber attack in Minnesota. There's being a lot of finger pointing towards Iran. Not sure if you saw that.
I don't know. It could have been the Israelis. It could have been our own guys. You know, we have a. You can talk to Kiriakou about this too. I think we have a capability. I'm forgetting what it's called, where we can basically frame another country in a cyber attack. The CIA will do it.
No, it's not framing. I'm pretty confident the Iranians, right? Because Trump dismissed it. Trump was like, no.
Yes, probably.
Because if Trump, I would doubt it if Trump was like, these Iranians, they cyber attacked us. We're gonna get our revenge. No one touches our cyber infrastructure.
Very possible
technological infrastructure. But as soon as he said, no, it's not Iran. I'm sure it's the governor there. He doesn't take care of the state. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty confident it's the Iranians, and they have a pretty effective cyber warfare capability.
They are, but What? If you're asking, like, do I think that they're competent in the cyber warfare domain? Yes. Do I think also you can see them a mile coming? Yeah, and I got some cybercom guys who will tell you all about that. Yeah, no doubt. But they are very competent. But are they the best? They're not the best.
Yeah, they're not the best, man. If North Korea is able to steal billions and billions and billions, because I'm in crypto, so you have no idea. Hundreds of billions of dollars over the years. I'm sure the Iranians can do a few things.
Oh, they can do a few things, but, you know, there's a certain pattern that, anyway, it doesn't matter. Yes, it probably was Iran, and you know what? It's not surprising because we've been poking them for a while.
Another big worry is when you get stuck in a war through the escalation trap, and this is a good example there is Russia. When you get into a war that was meant to be quick, and then you get stuck into it, and then you spend so much resources in that war. You know, Russia, the amount of people they've had dead, the amount of economic damage they faced, etc., from this war, how much they've put into this war, is not what they planned for in the beginning. You know, Putin planned for a quick operation, a special military operation, not a 4-year war counting with all these death and destruction caused by on both sides. But the reason I'm using Russia is the one that instigated the war with the invasion. Is the more they lose, the more that they're going to ask from Ukraine. The more this war drags on, they're going to start having new demands because they're losing, they're sacrificing more as the war drags on, and they're going to want more in return. And the worry I have is Trump gets stuck in a similar loop. The deeper, exactly, we are. The deeper he gets stuck in this, I'm worried we get to a stage where we get an attack like the attack on the substation, or we deplete even further munitions, where Trump was like, I lost all this, I need to get something out of Iran to make up for these losses, the sunk cost fallacy. And the sunk cost fallacy is one of the biggest factors for the escalation trap. Yeah, exactly. And I'm worried that this
KT tape increases blood flow to help reduce pain. Because you can either give up or you can tape up. KT tape, pro style pain relief.
Hey Holmes, find me a 3-bedroom home in Atlanta, near a Whole Foods. Show me the kitchens. Ready to see what you will find with Holmes AI?
To go to the end, it's already started to. It's going to cause all kinds of economic fallout.
Why do you think they added? Why do you think Israel's joining the game now? But according to the reports,
They probably looked at
more
whatever.
firepower.
Well, that too, but I think they probably looked at whatever Trump was planning to do when Netanyahu met with him, and they probably are like, oh, this is serious. Now let's go in. Because I think they were worried for a period of time that Trump wasn't fully on board, and so they were holding back to see what would happen. And I think now they've assessed, oh, this is a real plan. We're going to augment it as best we can. But it doesn't matter, because it's not going to have the impact that they think it will. The Islamic Republic has a very serious and viable defense strategy, and they have stuck to it, and they've been very disciplined, and they've also conserved their fire. They've been very, very smart about how and when and where they choose to attack. We have not been. We've been all over the place, and the Israelis are just as bad. And neither Israel nor the United States has the kind of firepower numbers to keep doing this indefinitely, and yet CENTCOM keeps cheering the president on. And so, you know, I just don't think there's a rational discussion being had.
Let me show you this
White-
one.
Yeah.
Let me show you this. Can you put that image there, please, Stephanie? The strategic petroleum reserves that came in today fell 3.8 million barrels last week to 308 million barrels, the lowest since March 1983. This marks the 18th consecutive weekly decline, the longest since 2023 after the Ukraine war, per Zero Hedge. During this period, oil reserves in the SPR have fallen 108 million barrels, or 26%. Meanwhile, commercial crude oil stocks, excluding the SPR, dropped 7.2 million barrels to 405 million barrels, the lowest since October 2018. This is also 7% below the 5-year average for this time of the year. America's oil buffer is evaporating.
You know, if it reaches 300 million, I mean, I know you speak to Chris Martinson, but I heard him talking about this. If it might have been on your show, I don't remember, but once it goes below 300 million, that's basically the oil.
308 million.
I know.
8
That's
million,
why.
yeah. 8
Yeah,
million then.
yeah. And at that rate, it will be probably a week. You know, we'll get to 300 million. And my understanding is anything below 300 million gets very dicey because it's not the quality anymore that we need it to be really effectively usable. And you know, no one's talking about diesel. I mean, diesel fuel is getting more expensive. It's not, you know, we are headed for a very, very rough time. And the president has been briefed repeatedly. The president knows it because he said when the MOU was signed at Versailles, I don't want to be Herbert Hoover. Well, he is on path to being Herbert Hoover. He can't help himself. He doesn't care. And the only thing I can think of is he's gone mentally. This is what I talked with Robert. We weren't planning to talk about it, but this is what he wanted to talk about, and I was very
He
happy.
loves talking about it, yeah.
Right, it's so true, though. I think he's completely, and you know, he would know, because he was one of the lawyers for Trump, and you know, there's no closer tie than a lawyer-client relationship, particularly with a guy like Trump. So, you know, I take him at his word. I really do think there's something wrong mentally with the president. And you're seeing this play out. I mean, you're sitting there trying to say, well, why is it's not rational? None of this is rational. None of this makes sense unless you accept the president is insane.
No, I'll tell you what's true. I'll rationalize it.
You're more.
I'll rationalize it. No, I try to always see things from the other side because I never like to, and I'm not talking about the example of the president and dementia, but I don't like to kind of simplify the side I oppose or that I don't understand as like stupid or wrong or evil.
I don't normally
or crazy.
either, but in this case.
So I'll tell you how I'm going to rationalize it, and this is not something crazy. It will actually make sense. The outcome, if they believe they can achieve their outcome in terms of them having control of the Strait of Hormuz, which I thought that ship has sailed, but maybe, as you say, it has
Nice pun.
the objective of regime
dad
change.
humor there. That was nice.
What's the pun?
The ship has sailed in the Strait of Hormuz. I like that.
Oh, I
That
didn't
was
do it
good.
intentionally, man.
I'm
No, I
gonna
didn't
use
do
that
it
on my
intentionally.
kids now.
Yeah, okay. Well, it wasn't intentional. I don't have your humor. But yeah, so what if the goal is still regime change, and what if the goal is still control of the Strait of Hormuz? You remember what I said? So remember what I said at the beginning of this war. I'm like, everyone's like Israel, etc. I'm like, this is about China, and we're seeing indications of that. You've talked about the corridors being targeted. Was it you or another? No, it was Patrick Henningsen. And you talked about it, both of you.
Central Asia,
today.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All the various corridors, the Belt and Road Initiative being targeted. Patrick took it a step further. He's saying, Mario, the
He's
Americans are
brilliant.
supporting
I love
the
Patrick.
Balochis.
Yeah.
They're supporting the Balochis and other militant groups to target the Chinese infrastructure. It's all about China, which to me, that's the lens I like to look at things, because that would make sense. You know, China's the threat to the U.S. in the next 50 years, so the U.S. is taking steps to weaken the up-and-coming power.
Not working.
And it's definitely not working. So they're doing the complete opposite. They're giving them fuel. But so they're handicapping themselves, the Americans. But so in this case, if controlling the Strait of Hormuz is about China, that means this war is worth the costs. It's worth the damage to the American bases. It is worth depleting interceptors. It is worth depleting long-range missiles. It is worth the damage to the alliances in the region. It is worth the damage to the Gulf. It is worth the damage to the global economy. It is worth depleting the petroleum reserves. Why? Because at the end of the tunnel, assuming the administration believe they can get there, at the end of the tunnel, the U.S. controls the world's most important energy choke point, and it gives the Americans massive leverage to counter China's leverage with the rare earths.
Yeah.
So that's the only way I would rationalize it. But if I'm right, that's the only rationale I can think of. I'm open for another one. But if I'm right, if this is the reasoning behind the scenes, then we're screwed. That means they'll go scorched earth in a way to achieve that objective, because that's how important it is.
And so when I talked to Matthew Boyle, this is exactly what he said in the middle of the interview. Because I asked him, I go, what is the administration thinking? Because I said, obviously my contacts don't talk to me the way they used to because of my criticism. And he laid out almost exactly what you just said. And this is what I have heard for many months, that, it's 5D chess, and it's really, and it's like, I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, maybe that was the intention. But listen, dude, I'm looking at China getting stronger. I'm looking at the rest of the world looking around going, America's acting kind of crazy. We're going to do business with China. They're the stable ones.
You know what you
This
hear
is
to
not a good scenario if you're trying to, and by the way, we haven't collapsed China. What did we find out during the MOU? The Wall Street Journal reported this about a week ago. I wish I thought to bring it up. I would have had it come up on the screen. But a week ago, the Wall Street Journal reported that the Iranians may have made as much as $6 billion during the MOU because they were able to move their energy through the Strait of Hormuz. Where did it go? It went to Malaysia, where it was then offloaded at sea onto Chinese, almost exclusively Chinese ships that were waiting. So, and then everything they were sending also over the Belt and Road Initiative rail lines. So, the only ones who are benefiting from this in any positive way is China. Now, do I believe they want the war to go on? I actually don't think Beijing wants the war to go on, and I've said this to you before, because the Chinese cultural bias is toward, or their preference is toward, stability on the periphery. That's what they prefer. But look, they're looking around and they're saying, look, chaos under heaven. That gives them some advantages. And the rest of the world's looking to China now. Russia's looking to China. Well, it just shows you, though, but it shows you how ignorant and insane the White House is. Because they've concocted this cockamamie idea, and they've executed it so boldly that now they have no choice but to continue going into the gates of hell, and they're going to get burned. They're going to get burned, and they're going to burn all of us.
Just imagine China, imagine Xi just sitting there. Obviously,
Laughing.
Russia's always been historically a threat to China, and Russia just dragged itself into a 4-year war in Ukraine. And then its biggest threat is the US, and it's just dragged itself into a war with Iran. And China's looking at this like, and China's selling to everybody and making money from everybody. They're looking at this, they're like, guys, like, this is...
And they still have, by the way, they still have all that oil. They still have all the strategic, they have over 1 billion barrels. I understand.
And they have the exception, for ships going through the Gulf of Aden and the Strait of Hormuz.
They directly negotiated with the Houthis. Hint, Saudi, you should probably take a page out of China's book and directly negotiate with the Houthis and get this over with. But my point is, it's already a Chinese-led world. We lost. Let me tell you when we lost. I'll tell you, because I was writing this at the National Interest, and I got a lot of hate mail from people who used to like me in D.C. I said, look, there's two things that have happened in the last year and a half. It's very clear. The first is there's no way in hell the U.S. can hold on to the first island chain. That's off the table now. I go, and second of all, I was a supporter of the idea of a selective tariff, trade war over national security items. But I never supported the way that the president went about it. He went about it such a bass-ackwards way of going at the Chinese that it allowed the Chinese to play their rare earth mineral strength. We didn't think. I don't know what he was doing. So the minute that we allowed for China to exert their dominance over rare earth, which they are continuing to do, that was it. That was it. The world saw it. They said, okay, China's the leader. And now this war is solidifying their image in Beijing as the stable party. Whether they are or not, I'm not going to get into that because there's a lot of people, oh no, it doesn't matter. The point is the rest of the world is scared and they're looking around and they're going, the Americans are the ones who started this. It's not going well. They're not stopping it. It's getting worse for us. China's the normal one. We're going to go with China. This is the end of the U.S. dominance that we were talking about yesterday. This is the end of it. Whether it happens now officially or 10 years from now, it's over. And that is, by the way, one of the reasons Scott Bessent looks like he's constipated most of the time these days, because he sees it. Bessent is no fool. I know he sees it from a financial perspective.
Sabrina Gonzalez.
Did you see the note that Scott Bessent wrote? Roy just took a note, picture of his notepad. Nothing special. You can show this on the screen. That's what his notepad had. Unrelated to China and the US. I think unrelated. It says, to do buy Japanese yen.
Gabrielle Union Wade here. I want to encourage all women, especially as we get older, to prioritize conversations with our doctors about our health and the symptoms we're experiencing. So talk to your doctor about Linquet. To learn more, go to linquet.com. That's
That's a cool video too.
Gabrielle Union Wade is a paid spokesperson for Bayer and is taking Linquet, elinzanetant 60 milligram capsules. Individual results may vary.
Well, we talked about Iran, and the reason that we ended up talking a lot about domestic politics was because we started with Iran, but his point, and I think he's absolutely correct, his point was that you want to understand, the current political moment on the right in America. You have to put it through the prism of Iran. If you are for Iran or,
Jim Fink,
off in
family and friends of
whatever,
who passed away unexpectedly on July 23rd at age of 63. That is way too young.
You view the Iran war through a negative prism, as I do. That's sort of like the great sifter. Sort of like how COVID was in the first term, right? There were people who went along with the president because he was the president and they trusted him. And there are other people who said, DeSantis has got it right. He's reopening Florida. He's not listening to the president anymore.
Jerry Van Zell.
The pandemic, and guess what?
The east side of St. Paul.
Ended up being way wrong.
Says in East St. Paul, there's no such place.
That's why Trump
It's
will
the east
not
side.
have the Republicans try to get rid of the pardon for Fauci.
He turns 55 today.
All the
Love from Sarah
stuff
Nell.
from 2020 about how
Becky
Trump
Schaefer,
was
August 7th.
Yeah, well, talk to
birthday
Robert
from
about
your
this.
loving
Talk to
husband,
some lawyers
Paul.
because the fact that he pled the 5th while he had a party,
Wedding turns
that actually
18
negates technically
on
that could
July
very well
today. Love from Mom Connie.
Party that pleaded the 5th. That's just. Yeah,
Tracy Cramlinger had her birthday 2 days ago on the 29th. Love from your cousin, our friend Cindy Doherty.
We're finding out now,
That's the
Trump,
birthday.
this is something we talked about to a degree with Barnes. We talked a lot about tobacco.
Alice Fletcher turned
but one of the things
95 years old on the
discovered is that,
29th.
Trump told
Great aunt
one of
Timmy
the
and Nicole.
reporters, I think it was
Happy
an
birthday
NBC
to you,
reporter,
Alice.
that, no, somebody, I'm sorry, it was NBC, got a
Dave
behind the
Ruska is
scenes,
83
off-the-record
years
chat
young
with
now.
somebody in the Trump
Love from
administration.
daughter Tracy
And they
Fulton.
said the reason Trump is also not
Peggy
wanting to get
Fitzgerald
rid of
Olhauser,
health
July
department
27th.
is because they have planned on the last day of the Trump administration
Happy
to sign a
anniversary
bunch of pardons for all the top Trump people
Susie
and the Trump
Inglis and
family,
James Spencer.
no matter what. And they don't. And they want the
13
Democrats
years of a
to
great
honor those
partnership,
pardons.
riding with
And
us
here
in
is,
Glasgow,
if
Scotland.
Trump doesn't honor the Biden
Well,
pardon when the next Democrat
happy
comes in,
anniversary.
probably in 2020, and Trump doesn't stay, they will.
Cassandra Allison
For the Trump.
is having her birthday
So that's
Monday.
what we talked about. It was really a lot of domestic stuff.
Yeah, he
Wasn't-
loves getting into domestic politics.
well, that's sort of his bailiwick, and honestly, I
It
thought
is.
it was a nice
Getting
change.
Oh, he's great. He's great.
brilliant.
I love
Yeah.
Robert. I love
Yeah.
Robert. One of my favorite
From
guests.
Isaac Valek,
Yeah,
prayers to his girlfriend Teresa Katerlik.
yeah, we have some
Looking at
chemistry.
the information.
Stepmom
of
Kim
Yeah, I
is
thought so. I knew it. I knew,
Yeah.
I knew
in hospice
I knew you'd
care.
probably have. I knew you and Karen would click, and I'm like, you and Robert would click, and I told the team.
I know Robert a little bit though. I don't know. I didn't know him well, but I have his cell number. We occasionally talk.
Oh, I knew one I wanted to check. Did you have another interview today? Did you have
Yes,
two?
that's it.
yes, with the and I'm forget.
Let's go back on patrol.
Yes, Jameson. Oh, that's unrelated. Yeah, this is about the Russia thing.
Yeah, and I pushed back. You know, I did what I could. You know, I just, you know, I couldn't disagree with him more. You know, he's up on.
What is this? What's
Well,
this-
basically, you know, he's running this task force, and I wanted to talk to him about that because I found that fascinating. He's somehow involved with running this task force that's advocating for the EU to take the $300 billion in frozen Russian assets and hand it over to the Ukrainians. And 290
We don't. Sorry.
Hey man,
shout out Bob Fletcher.
All right. Take care, you guys. Thanks for watching.
For you to at least move that money into Kyiv's coffers. And, you know, he talked about this whole thing, and I just said, look, I go, you know, fine, I understand your position, but don't you think that's going to do more
I
damage
happen
to
to see
the
this
U.S.-led
on ID.
economic order? It's
Go
going
on
to me. I
without
said, well,
mentioning this.
I go, let's consider
Kelly's
the
daughter
whole
passed
world
away June 30th.
does business according to the
26
dollar,
years of age.
according to sort of the basic
Oh,
US
Kelly.
financial
We're
standards.
so sorry.
Very sorry for your loss.
Follows those standards. Everybody follows those standards. They agree to follow those standards. And then we use our power, holding money from a foreign country, in this case nuclear-armed Russia, we use our power to not only freeze those assets, but then to hand those assets over to a foreign country that they're at war with. What do you think the rest of the world who's doing business with us is going to think? They're going to think our money isn't safe in the American-led system, and that's going to be another damage, another blow to already damaged U.S. Economic order. We didn't like that, so we went back and forth for most of the thing on that.
And then he blocked us.
Really?
No, I'm joking. He did block
Okay,
us.
I'm sorry about that. That was
Oh,
fine.
by the way, I spoke to Patrick on the Spain thing.
Yeah,
I'm pretty convinced it's the Americans and the Israelis getting
all
back
right,
to
too.
Spain.
100%.
And apparently there's a report that the Moroccans are trying to break through the fences again decided about.
Since adding portable meals into my weekly routine, not only have I saved hours on meal prep, I've actually been eating healthier and staying
That's
consistent
very
with my
confusing.
nutrition goals. Fill your body with real food that heat up in just 2 minutes and have no preservatives and no seed oils. Whole foods that actually taste incredible. I highly recommend prioritizing your health with Porkful.
A little bit you and I this morning, and I really do think that this is a play by the Zionists to destabilize another choke point and put it in a more, shall we say, pliant proxy in the hands of another pliant proxy, in this case Morocco, which the leadership is very pro-Israel. The king of Morocco, like I said earlier, I've heard things. So, yeah.
Hey, Thomas and Nicole,
This is
wow,
not
we
Done
got
all
to
the
take
news
it.
of check if there's anything else. Yeah, this is just.
I
about
I
an hour
actually have something, something that I wrote about, and I think it was posted this evening on 1945.com. The U.S. Navy conducted a submarine readiness exercise recently. It did not go well, and the reason they were doing it is because they're very worried
Kyle, did you
about
monitor?
the
Can you
number
make
of
that
submarines in particular, but generally the number of ships
Yeah, they can. Let me
that
know when
the
you're ready.
Chinese Navy has managed to build. You know, China has the largest Navy now by ship in the world. And the Chinese nuclear submarine force is not only getting more numerous, their quantitative advantage has always been great, but now their qualitative competition is getting better. Each new submarine is getting more technically complex, quieter. It used to be you could hear the Chinese nuclear submarines all the way out in Pearl was the joke. That's not the case anymore. The new generation of Chinese subs are very, very, very powerful, very quiet, very problematic in the U.S. And apparently, the Navy's not happy with the readiness exercise, is what I'm hearing. What we're finding is that the U.S. Navy, as you know, we have a shipyard crisis here in the United States.
Oh, happy Friday, everybody.
We don't have enough space to maintain the ships.
Friday.
Not just production, that's a big problem too, but also we don't have enough space in the shipyards to repair all the ships that need to be maintained. And we saw I've written about this, I'm fascinated by this. The USS Boise is a Los Angeles class attack submarine. It had been sitting in port, waiting to be getting regular service since 2017. 2019, it lost its dive certification. It was sitting waiting for so long. And so finally, a couple years ago, or last year, I guess, the Navy said, okay, we're going to mothball it. We're going to keep it building this. It's never going to get a spot. Get repaired. The ship, years before it was ready to be decommissioned. And this is happening all over with the submarine force. The submarine...
That's crazy.
Yep. The submarine is the best weapon the Navy has in a potential naval war with China, because China has the anti-access area denial pretty good in the first island chain. So our carriers and surface ships will have a great deal of trouble getting within range because of those A2AD systems. The submarines, though, can still go under and can still potentially operate in those contested areas. But we don't have enough of them. And what this readiness exercise was trying to determine was if they could deploy enough on a wartime footing from their bases and shift them. A lot of them would have to come from the Atlantic. So that's a problem for Europe. That's a problem for the CENTCOM guys. They'd have to be shifted over, likely pushed through the Panama Canal, and head into the Indo-Pacific in a short order. We don't have enough of these things anymore. It's going to be very problematic.
Eastbound on Maryland now.
We are headed for a very serious crisis.
We'll go southbound on White Bear.
Your audience
Kind of show you guys where one of our traffic stops was.
This is not something they normally do. The reason they did this is because
Sarah had a very busy week.
and they're panicked because we don't have enough stuff to
investigator
fight all these fights, and they're all waiting for China
cases,
to drop
which ended up recovering 3 firearms.
I didn't even know about this issue.
Between
Yeah, well,
Tuesday
that
and
one's being
Wednesday.
kept hush-hush, but I've been reading the last couple of days.
This year,
We got here.
Instead of sorting these
she's got this
issues,
new phrase when she gets overwhelmed.
That's right.
She's got to put her little
also,
fingers
the US
to
stretches itself.
Well, the U.S. is stretching its allies.
where
Her
brain doesn't want to function.
She
She can't formulate sentences.
He was right about
So
this.
she just
You know,
runs
to be an
around
enemy
the
of
office
Americans
yelling,
is
"Ah!"
friendly here.
with her hands
You know,
up.
our
"Ah!"
allies will burn. And I'm not even somebody who really...
So she
And
said
Australia's really, Australia's really important for you guys. Like,
"Ah."
we're very close to China. So we're not one of your closest allies to
You know,
China.
I should
the
get you
Asian
in touch.
countries.
I should get you in touch. with
Yeah, so
one of my
pretty much right when we turned southbound here, we ended up
leading
blocking
expert
the car
on polar politics,
right about here at this
geopolitical
driveway.
competition in the Arctic and the Antarctic. Her name is
Fortunately, everybody was compliant. I think they were a little bit taken back by Thomas.
She's an Australian defense expert. You guys should
But
definitely
it all
put you
worked
guys
out
in
for the
touch.
best. So that traffic stop had a firearm equipped with an auto sear
Hopefully this weekend.
on it with a 50-round drum magazine.
Or just a bluff to question environment.
No parties in the vehicle have
Inshallah, as my Muslim friends say. God
When
willing, this
we-
is... Yeah.
When we had the wiping out of
Nobody
civilization, I
can
was very comfortable, confident in saying this is a bluff and we're going to off-ramp.
100% completely
Now
illegal
I'm
for
in a
everybody to have
completely
an
different
auto
mindset.
sear.
Oh,
So
I
Mario.
would like to make it better. I think it's more likely to happen than not, for sure.
Mario, I gotta tell you, the civilization tweet, from what I understand, and
So
Robert
good
confirmed I
stuff.
heard this elsewhere, was not a bluff. They had to talk him out of
Sarah did a
doing
little
something
bit more
very
follow-up the
irresponsible.
next day.
So, President, I do. The president is loco. And nobody has the balls to call him out on it in terms of the 25th Amendment or anything like that. This guy is taking us off the cliff. So it's Thelma and Louise.
But the serial numbers that are on there are not specific to any firearm. Originally had the firearm built it, but kind of a generic upper and a generic lower on it. So the serial numbers that are on there are just kind of generic random numbers by the manufacturer that would be on any firearm that purchased those parts. As you guys know, I feel fairly strongly about the ghost gun laws. Don't agree with them. I think that they make our job very hard with stuff. And that's kind of just another example of it. You've got 4 parties who do not have a firearm, and there's no way for us to track back who the original owner was of it to see if it was stolen or maybe it was straw purchased. But we'll go through, we'll do our due diligence, try to find the true owners of those firearms to see if they were stolen or if we have kind of a bigger case to where somebody is straw purchased firearms for people who do not have them.
Broken windows, folks doing damage just to keep a black man from having a sandwich. Not even that damn blemish. Promising Dr. King, hoping I can manage to keep it peaceful in the midst of this evil. It's too much to take. Damn it, I can't stand it.
I think you summed it up pretty well.
Oh,
pretty well there, buddy. Oh, very good work by you guys. So. Maybe I got to get in on a couple of search warrants. Yeah, why don't you tell them about yours? If David's working on that, come in and do the fun stuff, and then what did you do? And then tell them what you did after you did the fun stuff. Well, we left. You left. You didn't need us anymore. You left. You didn't need us anymore. There to do the fun stuff and leave. One short little report, and done. No booking, no property, no paperwork, no follow-ups, no interviews, no nothing.
Yes. The least 3 Army sends its regards.
Maybe get some accessories today.
Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt. And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1619 of the War News stream. And tonight we have very big news, especially out of the Middle East, about some big events about to happen there, and also out of Europe as well. Right now we're getting word that U.S. forces are preparing the order for imminent heavy strikes on Iranian forces to force them to surrender, and that could include striking energy sites across the entire country of Iran. Also, massive explosions have erupted in Russian cities, and these are some monumental explosions to say the least. And also, Iran attacked Kuwait and the Hormuz Strait again today, like an old bad habit. But it's good to see you all once again. And of course, we're going to cover the past 24 hours of the news from around the world, as we have been able to hear of significant developments within the Middle East, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and the United States of America over the course of this day. As we have heard news and reports coming out from the United States that internal U.S. officials, privy to the information coming out of the White House, have started to state that the United States President has apparently given the green light for a major strike campaign to commence here incredibly soon by U.S. forces under the command of CENTCOM's area of responsibility. It is expected that these strikes will be happening at some point in between the next 24 hours, as it was largely planned to be able to mitigate the damage or the effects to the stock market by conducting the strikes or starting the strikes once the markets close. We have been able to hear that apparently the United States is also trying to recruit Israel into this next round of strikes, and is trying to see if their firepower would be available along with the United States to be able to knock out a significant number of the transporter-Ranctor launchers, and also simultaneously conduct their coastal campaigns along the southern coast to eventually attempt to break the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. According to Iranian claims, the Islamic Republic of Iran has conducted an attack on a U.S.-led oil tanker convoy through the Strait of Hormuz, resulting in the damaging and loss of 2 vessels and the damaging of an additional other 2. We have not been able to see any proof that the United States has even begun convoy escorts within the area, which makes this story incredibly ambiguous, if not largely untrustworthy at the moment, as we generally have absolutely no verification or proof that this story is anywhere close to being factual or correct. However, we do have factual information that the Islamic Republic of Iran did conduct a missile attack overnight against U.S. forces in Kuwait, as Kuwaiti air defenses did report that a large number of ballistic missiles have been fired into their airspace, and that they were able to successfully intercept a large number of them. We're not entirely sure how many of them actually made contact or impacted U.S. facilities within the Kingdom of Kuwait, but we'll mostly be getting that information within the next 2 days. Outside of this, we have also seen that the Saudi Arabians are now beginning to prepare a major escalation against the Yemeni Houthis, as we're now hearing that a multitude of different military actions, up to and including a full-blown ground invasion by Saudi forces into the Houthi lands, are being prepared and planned at this time by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Apparently, the idea or concept behind this is to finally destroy the significant threat to the kingdom once and for all, considering that it is now blocking the shipments of oil out of the Bab el-Mandeb from Saudi Arabia, and that they've also conducted ballistic missile attacks on critical infrastructure throughout the entirety of the kingdom. Outside of this information in Saudi Arabia, we have also seen that in other corners of the world, in the United States of America, we did get to see that unfortunately an F-35 did crash today in San Diego due to some sort of a technical error or a engine failure, and we also were able to hear that the Islamic Republic of Iran may have possibly been behind a large number of cyber attacks that were conducted within the state of Minnesota earlier in the day. Additionally, we've also been able to hear that the United States President has completely backtracked out of his original offer for the Ukrainians to license produce Patriot interceptors, and apparently we will also not be providing completed or finished Patriot interceptors either to the state of Ukraine, meaning that Ukraine's Patriot interceptors are largely going offline, possibly for the last time, unless it's for provisions from the European Union of their Patriot interceptors, due to a U.S. lack of will to provide the state of Ukraine with any meaningful large caliber air defense interceptor systems, or to even allow for them to purchase those systems from the United States. We have also been able to hear outside of this information that within the war in Ukraine, Ukrainian long-range attack forces are causing significant damage to the Russian Federation's key facilities and industries once again. A major strike and an explosion has been seen within the city of Nizhnekamsk's industrial area just within the past hour, as Ukrainian drones were able to make landfall in that area, and further information came out from the Volgograd region that the Russian Federation's wild berries distribution facility has quite literally completely burned to the ground. We were able to get additional information on the Kaspiysk attack, and was able to confirm that the Ukrainian armed forces did attack the naval yard within the area of Kaspiysk on the west coast of the Caspian Sea, and Ukrainian forces have also conducted attacks against Sebastopol and Rostov-on-Don, with the Russians claiming that several FP-5 Flamingos have been fired at Rostov-on-Don, although we have no verifiable proof of that report here on the air. All we have reports and proof of is successful in-air interceptions, but the altitude appears to be too high for it to be an FP-5 Flamingo. We have also seen that the Ukrainian armed forces have held their lines today, stopping any further Russian advances over the course of the past few hours, and that deep strikes have also been conducted near to the city of Donetsk on a major power plant, and also within the Luhansk city area. We have also been able to hear that news has continued to murmur and echo through the European Union and NATO after the KH-101 cruise missile attack on Poland, in which Polish authorities have finally confirmed today in full form that the missile was 100% verified to be a Russian cruise missile, something that we had already reported about 36 hours ago here on the channel, but the Polish investigation is finally concluded, and parts and analysis on the ground of the debris field is clearly indicative of a Russian KH-101 caliber cruise missile. The Polish have called for the Russian ambassador to have him try and explain why in the world a Russian missile blew up on Polish territory, and the French have openly condemned the action, stating that it's a significant violation and that France stands with the Republic of Poland. We've also been able to see that the Lithuanian foreign minister has stated that this is clearly an Article 4 invocation-worthy incident, and that he believes that that should be acted upon by the Republic of Poland, showing that right now NATO is largely trying to get an understanding of how they will react, and some voices are saying that reaction should be a lot stronger than they are. While we are seeing that within the Polish government, the reaction is about as mild and tepid as it could generally get. But we have significant amounts of news to cover from around the world over the course of this past 24 hours, and we're going to be making sure to get into it, starting with our largest stories first of the night, and then moving our way on down into the smaller stories of the night. And so moving us on and immediately into our largest stories of the day, that will be taking us immediately into the Middle East and CENTCOM's area of responsibility. As many of y'all will know, the Islamic Republic of Iran still continues to pose a significant strategic threat to the United States of America because of its continued developments of intercontinental ballistic missiles, intermediate-range ballistic missiles, and also their nuclear weapons program, which still appears to be operating as far as we understand. More importantly, in terms of imminent threats that the Iranians are posing, is their continued blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, which is still ongoing as of this day today. If we take a look at marine traffic, we can see that there is a non-existent number of vessels currently transiting the Strait of Hormuz, and we can also note that any vessels that are within the area are largely either spoofed vessels or they're Iranian-flagged vessels that are operating out of Bandar Abbas port and in between their islands inside of the strait. This means that at the moment, global oil supplies are still being completely deadlocked within this area of the Middle East, as the Islamic Republic of Iran does not appear to be relinquishing its control of the Strait of Hormuz at any point in the near future, and they have made it additionally clear once again today through an official statement that transit through the Strait of Hormuz will not be possible. According to a statement by the illegitimate Persian Gulf Strait Authority, they stated that due to the continuation of aggressive actions by U.S. military forces in the region, transit through the Strait of Hormuz is not possible. In short, a very simple message, but making it incredibly clear that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Islamic Republic of Iran will not be allowing any vessels to transit through the strait and will continue to try and choke out the Western world by stopping 23% of the globe's oil from making it onto the open market. While this situation has been continuing, it does appear that, much like we were able to get from reports yesterday, the United States government is becoming incredibly frustrated with the fact that they entered a war and that they are still having to fight a war that has not ended, as they have not defeated the enemy, and the enemy has not defeated us yet either as well. And so currently we have been able to hear that there's been a decent amount of progress in that regard, that allegedly the president has now ordered new attacks on the Islamic Republic of Iran, according to insider reports that were given to the Wall Street Journal. We also were able to get some additional reports that were coming around as well, as CBS reported the following on top of this information, and added that the United States and Israel are planning what would be one of the harshest bombing campaigns to date against energy infrastructure targets in Iran. Multiple sources told CBS News with strikes possible throughout the weekend. There was some discussion about trying to conclude by the time financial markets open on Monday because of concern about how the bombings will affect the U.S. and global economy, but an endpoint was not locked in. The Israelis have been notified and are coordinating with the United States, according to multiple U.S. sources. The president has yet to give final go orders for the strikes, the sources added. But of course, we were able to see from the Wall Street Journal report, they then got information from other insiders that the president had largely given some form of authorization for large-scale strikes to start over this weekend. And to further elaborate, much like we were speaking about with that very same CBS article, they are starting to state that the targets are going to be energy-related within the Islamic Republic of Iran. So this might be the long-coming energy, or more so power plant and bridge bombing campaign that the United States has been, or more so the president, has more so been trying to spearhead as a main prerogative of the U.S. Armed Forces, instead of anything that's trying trying to focus against the maritime and anti-ship forces of the IRGC along the coastline, or any of the transport-erector launchers, which are still firing ballistic missiles at U.S. forces even as of today, and are still causing significant damage to material plant of U.S. military facilities within the region, and also significantly, I guess you could say, harming the health of our service members as they continue to be wounded in these Iranian ballistic missile strikes. Nevertheless, the United States of America is also trying to find other ways to economically pressure the Islamic Republic of Iran outside of major strike campaigns, as the United States is also apparently preparing to conduct a full 5,900-kilometer long land blockade against Iran, which would involve the cooperation of several neighboring countries, including Iraq, Turkey, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, to close their border crossings to the Islamic Republic of Iran. This has largely confirmed what the U.S. officials said yesterday, and that the president was exasperated, and there was really no strategy for how long the war was going to go or what they should be doing in the midst of the ongoing conflict. And it appears that at the moment they're now trying to see that not only will another round of bombing campaigns be conducted against Iran, they're also trying to stop any form of exports out of the Islamic Republic of Iran and into the greater world. The problem with this, however, is that we do not see that Afghanistan or Pakistan, if I remember correctly, was included in that statement. And just to make sure to go back really quickly and see if it was, actually Pakistan was. Afghanistan generally is not going to be involved or support any sort of a ban on Iranian goods and shipments. We did see that the Taliban openly offered military support at the beginning of the conflict, and so any attempt by the United States of America in diplomatic aims to get the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, or the Taliban in short, to agree to stop any sort of shipments or transits into Iran would probably not go all too well. Additionally, Turkmenistan has a militant policy of neutrality, meaning that they're not going to take actions that show that they are American aligned.
There's just no way the U.S. can get all these different countries on board with us. I'm not buying that for a second. So we haven't heard the U.S. officials say that they have a plan to actually start this land blockade against Iran, but I would say the odds of this even being a realistic possibility are basically next to none, because, I mean, you can't get anybody to agree to anything in the Middle East. Do you think you can get every single country around Iran's borders to agree to cut them off? It's like, I would doubt that extremely.
I would doubt that extremely. I would say that probably Armenia and Azerbaijan would easily get involved. Azerbaijan is very unfriendly to the Iranians, and the Armenians also are as well. But the thing about that is that the Iranians really don't have any trade to speak of that goes through Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, or Iraq. So all of those countries are pretty much completely out of the picture anyways. This is like, what trade would really be impacted with that? It's not like the Iranians are exporting extreme amounts of components, goods, or materials via Iraq, Turkey, Armenia, or Azerbaijan. So really more so the country that would be trying to get on board, or the countries we would be trying to get on board, would be Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Turkmenistan, which are the countries to the east that are a part of significant shipping corridors over land to the People's Republic of China or elsewhere. And the Pakistanis probably will not agree to that, because that will start to put them in a somewhat unfriendly position with the People's Republic of China, which is a significant arms provider to the Islamic Republic of Pakistan at this point. And so they would probably say that due to their economic obligations, they really can't follow through with that. The Taliban would tell us to go to hell straight up. I mean, they're not even going to consider it or give a reason. It's just that we're the infidels, so they're going to tell us to go to hell. And Turkmenistan has a militant position of neutrality in foreign policy, meaning that they would not be willing, under really any circumstances, to take any actions that look like they're sympathetic or supporting the Islamic Republic of Iran or supporting the United States of America. I mean, they're going to say, look, I mean, if you want to trade with us as well, that's totally fine. We're not going to stop Iranian trade either, because it's going to start largely breaking neutrality. To explain this a little bit as far as how that works, because a lot of people don't know much about Turkmenistan, a fairly small stand-series country in Central Asia. Turkmenistan is run by a dictatorship that is about as crazy, if not more insane, than the one that's in North Korea. Not in the way that they run labor camps and whatnot, it's just that the leader is like almost like quite legitimately nuts, like to put it that way. But the reason why they're able to get away with conducting what they do in Turkmenistan, as the United Nations has stated there's a significant amount of human rights concerns within the country, is that they take a militant policy of neutrality, which means that they don't get on anyone's bad side for any countries in the world that may have any significant sway or international authority or power to start saying, hey, you know, there's some significant humanitarian crises and concerns within Turkmenistan. And so if Turkmenistan starts to upset that balance, any country in the world that has any sort of sway within that region could start to say, hey, you know what, we actually have a problem with problems for their internal control. So Turkmenistan is going to do absolutely nothing to put them on the radar. They're just going to go, look, we're not involved in this, we're just taking a neutral stance, and it is what it is. So I don't really think a land blockade is going to be successful, given the fact that the eastern countries on Iran's eastern borders, for all different reasons, but all the same, will not stop their trade or overland routes with the Islamic Republic of Iran. But outside of that, though, a lot of people aren't talking about this heavy strike campaign that might be occurring within the next 24 hours. From what we're largely hearing, it probably will be. And Matt, what are people thinking about this, and what do you think about it as well?
Okay, so today we got our first really solid indication from mainstream media sources that apparently have sources within the U.S. government saying that the U.S. officials have prepared orders for heavy strikes on Iran's energy sites, possibly over the next 24 hours over this weekend, and it appears to be the U.S. officials are timing these strikes around the opening of the stock market on Monday, so that way it doesn't mess up the stock market. So this might be a very quick series of strikes if they're actually timing it that closely, but once again, it may not happen this weekend, it could come next weekend, or maybe they might launch it during the week. It's kind of hard to tell, but do you think that's a good idea, though? Striking energy sites in a very heavy way. Do you support that, or are you against it? 49% said it's a good idea and they should approve it, while 24% said really a long-term campaign is needed instead of a short-term one, and 21% of the audience said it's a bad idea. Energy is not a good target. So here's the problem with striking the energy sites. The moment the U.S. does that across Iran, Iran is going to start reciprocating on the energy sites in the Gulf states, and they're going to say it's justified because it's reciprocal. So that's going to create a problem because, as we've seen before, the Gulf states try to defend their infrastructure the best they can, but when Iran really tries to start targeting it, it's largely at the wide open. So that could put the desalination plants at risk inside of Kuwait and other Gulf states. It could put all their power at risk too. And those countries rely heavily on desalination and all these other infrastructure plants, and without it, they're going to have a civil crisis on their hands. So I'm not really sure why they're choosing to go after energy sites. In my opinion, it seems better to go after the oil sites. I mean, that's an easier target. It's not going to be an energy site, and also there's no worry about whether or not it's a war crime or not, because the energy sites are, arguably maybe civilian-oriented possibly, and not really more about military. It's maybe half and half. There's a fair argument on either side. So I'm actually with the 21%. I think the target is not a good choice, but the heavy strikes are a good idea, but the target might be a little iffy. But unfortunately, what say you?
I'd have to say that I'm generally with the 23% long-term campaign is needed. No one day, one big strike, one great wazoo is going to fix this problem. That became clear with the 13-day campaign we conducted and the month-and-a-half-long campaign we conducted in the first and second phases of the war. And now for some reason, folks, the U.S. military leadership is starting to anticipate that a single night of strikes blowing up a couple of power plants is really going to get them to think about things, change their mind. And I have absolutely no belief, or any confidence for that matter, that that is actually going to get the Iranians to finally turn the heel and start negotiating properly. Why in the world would it? We have already seen that the Iranians are more than willing to slaughter their own people in the streets, and 40,000 at a time in the middle of early January. So if a couple of Iranian civilians are without power, one, they're going to use that to try and radicalize the public by saying the U.S. did this to you, and that's why we're trying to fight against it, because we're trying to protect you all from these people. And additionally, if this causes any unrest within Iran, they're just going to wipe these people out if they start going out into the streets. So it really doesn't do anything for us. In the best case scenario, it just knocks out the power for a decent amount of civilians. And in the worst case scenario, it might lead to another massacre within Iran or a radicalization of the people in supporting the Islamic regime. None of those outcomes really sound that good to me.
But if it's such like a large strike, like to me, it sounds like it's not simply hitting a couple of power plants. It sounds like it could be like such a large series of extensive, comprehensive strikes that they take out the vast majority of them in one fell swoop. That's what it sounds like to me. So even if it's like something that significant, where they truly like take out basically most of the infrastructure in the country, I mean, would that change the equation?
Probably not. I mean, like being entirely honest, as far as like the near future, I mean, probably like in a half year from now it would. But here and now, militarily, it probably won't be affected too much. All of their ballistic missile capabilities are operated via transport erectile launchers that are diesel powered. So as long as they have any significant reserves or stores of diesel that are stored where we can't strike and hit them, and we would assume that there are fuel storages within the caves, then those transport erectile launchers can continue to work for months before they even start to run out of fuel if the entire power grid went offline in one single strike. Additionally, the anti-ship forces and the maritime forces of the IRGC along the coastline would also be able to operate for some time as well, probably a couple of months, before they too also ran out of fuel and munitions in some way or another. And so while it probably would have a positive effect maybe in the long term, by then we're probably in an economic crisis over here because we've run out of strategic petroleum reserves, and most of the world is going to be largely without oil, and the prices will have skyrocketed well out of control by then. So I would say, sure in a way, but the real question is it going to have a significant impact strategically before we're impacted strategically by their actions? And I would say that right now they would probably end up winning out in terms of the time game before we would with a strike campaign like that. And also on top of that, I don't really think there is a good justification to knock out every power plant within the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's like you were also saying, they are going to conduct reciprocal strikes against the Gulf states, and if their power infrastructure goes off or it suffers extremely tremendous damage, is a better way to put it, then even if the Strait of Hormuz blockade was eventually lifted, quite literally nobody in the region even has the electricity or the ability to operate their pipelines, their pumps, or anything else to get the oil to the export nodes and out into the open world. So that might end up sinking the entire situation, and then we might see they have to go through months or a year of repairs to even get their power grid up and running, or their oil infrastructure up and running, and all of them are attacked, even try and get oil back out there, and once again we've entered a financial crisis at that point because of an oil shortage.
2025.
Yeah, and also part of me wonders if maybe this is like another bluffing tactic or something, because we had heard this before, that the U.S. was making strongly about hitting the energy targets inside of Iran and wiping them all out, like in one fell swoop, all the energy sites, and then it never came to fruition. We never saw it happen, and they backed out of it, and then they said the peace deal was back on the table. So right now, I mean, it's Friday night right now, the U.S. markets are closed, so if they're worried about the stock market, that's not a concern now. It's closed for the entire weekend. It's Friday night now. And right now, it's the crack of dawn in Tehran, 6:01 a.m. in the morning. So it doesn't look like the U.S. is striking tonight, and it seems like they would have. They were planning on doing it, because if they plan on a couple of days of strikes, then they would want to start striking on Sunday night, so the market opens the next day. So it seems to be like the window for the weekend is already starting to fade a little bit, and they haven't done anything yet, which is kind of interesting. I mean, we haven't even seen small-scale strikes on Iran so far, and Kuwait got attacked today. The Strait of Hormuz was under missile attack by the Iranians, and they were launching attacks near the Kurdish areas too, less than 24 hours ago. So I'm not really sure. Like they're saying the final order hasn't been given yet, but at the same time though, we are seeing that Iran is taking it seriously. They're threatening the U.S. with reciprocal strikes already over Telegram, and also they're evacuating their aircraft from the Tehran International Airport in Iran. So apparently they think it's real, or they're playing it safe and getting their stuff out of Dodge before it's too late. But I don't know. Like maybe it's a calm before the storm, like Penny Mayo saying there in the chat, or maybe it's a bluff. It's kind of hard to tell these days.
But
I mean, even still though, like I would say, if the plan is we're going to somehow do enough damage to them in one day of strikes that they're going to finally be brought to heel.
In the days ahead, weeks
Why
ahead,
would
months
we
ahead,
think
sulfur
that?
cars are going to be
We
any
bombed
notable
them for a
change
month
there.
and a half straight, and then we bombed them for about 2 weeks straight. And now one night's going to fix the problem, but a month and a half and 2 weeks separately didn't. That's like, why in the world would one night be the magic number this time? It's a far smaller amount of time than any other strike campaign, and no matter how hard we're operating during that night or that 124-hour period, there is no way that we can conduct the number of sorties or the number of strikes that we're seeing over a 2-week or a month and a half long period like we saw before.
But remember though, they're saying Israel is going to get involved in this. If it happens, they're saying Israel is going to be attacking alongside the United States, so that doubles the force. So they might be able to hit more targets that way if Israel is involved with it. So if they do that, I think it might be possible.
Underneath the surface, of course. So I'm just using it as an example
but
for.
I would say I'm fairly doubtful. Like one thing I'd have to say is that I'm not really an optimist when it comes to this whole side of things anymore with this war, because we keep on watching them come around over and over. Like the second phase of war, we're like, well, maybe they'll finally reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and then they give up before they even get close to seeing any kind of positive results. So, and also on top of that, as far as foreign policy decisions, they very look like they're getting close to a breakthrough. Right when they're literally like at 90% of that breakthrough, they were just about to get to it. They completely back off and they lose all the progress that they made. So
I'm kind of expecting, just to be honest with everyone here, that we're probably going to strike a whole bunch of stuff tomorrow that really isn't going to have a lot of strategic impact on the greater picture, and then we're going to just, be back in limbo land like we are right now. And figure out what in the world we're going to do next. And they're probably going to try and figure out, well, maybe we'll just, do another bombing campaign like that again. Maybe that'll do something about it. I hate to say it, folks, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news or the voice of dejection, but it's at this point, so with how this war's gone so far, I just don't really have a lot of positive feelings or a lot of hope about them finally doing something that's going to make sense or produce some sort of a positive outcome.
But they got it, though. I mean, they have to do something, though. I mean, like I said, Kuwait got attacked again today, some serious attacks there, and also the shipping in the Strait of Hormuz is still under heavy attack, regardless of what CENTCOM's saying about the Strait allegedly being open. It's not. So, I mean, they have to do something. I mean, right now, the Iranians are putting their foot on our neck right now. That's what they're doing. And we have to get that foot off our neck eventually, or otherwise it's going to actually cause some real consequences for everybody. They're going to keep running out the interceptors in the Gulf states until finally civilians end up getting hurt in those states because the missiles make it through. And also, the Hormuz Strait is going to continue compounding until finally there's actually a global crisis because of it. I mean, that's still a problem.
Yeah, I mean, all that's a problem, but, that's taking the understanding that the administration understands and recognizes those problems, and they feel like they have an obligation or a duty to fix the issue before it culminates into absolutely destructive results. And so far, we have never seen that sort of a decision-making process by anybody in the administration so far. The strait is closed. No, it's not. It's just open and it's fine. If the Middle Eastern countries are getting hit, no, they're not. That's a lie. Fact check. Everyone's fine. They just continue to largely run disinformation campaigns to say everything isn't going bad, it's just going great, and they just completely deny the reality of the situation so that they can do whatever they want, regardless of what our actual realistic confines and restrictions really are.
Yeah, we'll have to see in the meantime, but we'll see how it goes this weekend, see if anything happens.
Yeah, I guess we will, really. But moving us on out of that bit of news inside of the Strait of Hormuz, we also were able to additionally hear that as well, it appears that the Saudi Arabians are preparing for some major actions against the Yemeni Houthis at some point here in the near future. And this might actually be one of the few positive developments that we have heard of in the Middle East at this point, as we're able to hear today.
I don't think a 4.7 is necessarily
Saudi Arabia is apparently preparing to conduct operations against the Houthis that could include airstrikes, naval actions, and a full-blown ground offensive possible. The reason for the escalation is the threat to the shipping in the Red Sea, as the Houthis, who control part of Yemen, announced a blockade of Saudi vessels and threatened attacks on oil infrastructure. Riyadh has begun deploying troops and is creating an international coalition to protect the trade routes, and at the same time, Saudi Arabia is trying to avoid a direct conflict with Iran, which supports the Houthis. But due to the threats, some oil tankers have already begun bypassing the Red Sea via Africa, increasing oil delivery times and also shipping and handling costs for the shipping rates, as they're having to travel a far greater amount of mileage to be able to make it to some of their delivery points globally. To show you a little bit of the shipping passages within the area, we actually have both of them right here, including the Strait of Hormuz on the top and the Bab el-Mandeb here on the bottom. This actually shows us a bit of a day-by-day ship transit or ship transit figure, and we can actually see that the number of ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz has once again gotten down to quite literally nothing on the 30th of July, only 5 ships in a day, and generally we're seeing that the passage through the Bab el-Mandeb has unfortunately not been heavily affected yet. Only the Saudi tankers, the ones that are being affected, and it appears that the Houthis are leaving all the other vessels alone. So companies and insurers still feel confident enough to be able to insure these vessels, and companies feel confident enough to tell their vessels that they can pass through the Strait of Hormuz, the Bab el-Mandeb, and make it either to the Suez Canal or out into the Indian Ocean. So right now we're not seeing any significant effect, at least in global shipping, that the Yemeni Houthis have conducted against the Bab el-Mandeb outside of Saudi oil tankers. But it is always possible that at any given moment, if the Saudis conducted enough hostile actions against the Yemeni Houthis may just announce a complete blockade of the Strait to punish everybody in the world that supports Saudi Arabia, or something along those lines. It would generally be some sort of a trumped-up plan. That's usually how they work, and they would be using that to shut down the Strait of Hormuz for an indefinite period of time until their demands were met. We have also been able to see outside of the Suez in western Yemen, in the Houthi lands, that further on up and within the Islamic Republic of Iran, they've made it incredibly clear that they are once again ready to fight the United States. As Tesla News, in short, not to read the
entire state of the field, but Tasnim News largely stated that they are prepared to conduct a comprehensive plan to respond to any potential American recklessness, as they call it, and they state that if any American attacks are conducted against the Islamic Republic of Iran, they are prepared and able to conduct significant strikes to keep the church. They're freaked out, like whether or not this actually turns out to be a real action that the U.S. takes. I mean, clearly, Tehran is freaked out bigger than hell about it, thinking it's actually going to happen. It's weird, though, because, Tehran has the upper hand in the Strait of Hormuz still, and also they're still launching attacks on all the Gulf states, largely unopposed for the most part. But at the same time, though, they still get really shaky whenever they think a heavy bomb or Israel is coming back to the mix. I think they might be more worried about that, about Israel jumping back in and going ham.
Yeah, I honestly think so. Like, being completely honest, I think they are worried about it a little bit. But, they're probably just worried that the Israelis might be getting involved. Because right now, with the Israelis possibly getting involved, the Israelis can end up wiping out all the government officials again. So that might be the reason why they're getting worried, is because none of them want to get, martyred, per se. We also were able to see that a large amount of aircraft are leaving Mehrabad Airport within Tehran. It looks like they're most likely fleeing either further east into Mashhad, within the far northeastern corner of the Islamic Republic of Iran, or they may be trying to leave the country and hang out elsewhere, so that way they cannot be targeted and destroyed by future upcoming U.S. strikes if they were to try and destroy U.S. aircraft. We also were able to see another news outlet report, NBC News today, that the Russian Federation is providing satellite surveillance and signals intelligence that may help the Iranians target U.S. forces within the area. Quite obvious that would be the case. The Russian Federation
Just like the seasons of the year, the seasons of life offer times of change to enjoy.
In wartime, so nothing incredible
and
to
get
there,
ready
to be
for
entirely
from
honest
the
with you.
first milestones.
Meanwhile, we have also been able to see that the Islamic Republic of Iran did not sit around quietly today, and they did launch a decent number of drones towards the Kingdom of Kuwait. We actually got footage of that right here. Quite loud. Little angry mosquitoes. Look at that. I see they've started adopting the Jetta little drones right there. Yeah, it really does seem like they're starting to use a lot of jet-assisted takeoff drones, which is very interesting to note. The Kuwaiti air defenses did report that these drones entered the airspace and the Kuwaiti air defenses were active. We also were able to see the standard drone threat alert from the Ministry of Defense of Kuwait, and they reported that all of the drones that were entering Kuwaiti's airspace this morning, or the Kuwait's airspace this morning, were shot down, with falling debris being seen in some areas. Of course, the Iranians claim that they completely destroyed everything within the Islamic Republic of Iran, and they, actually the Kingdom of Kuwait, and they claim that they were able to hit a couple of air bases that the United States operates out of in Kuwait, although we generally have absolutely no proof or verification that such a thing happened. I always have to tell folks that while we generally report the news as accurately as we can, we also have to keep in the fact that most reports from both sides of this plane are completely unfactual, if not just straight up lies. And the Iranians are master liars. They will lie about quite literally everything they do within the Middle East, and if they fired off a single drone, they're going to claim that 500 drones were fired and that these wiped out a billion U.S. soldiers, when in reality, that's the maximum number of U.S. soldiers in the U.S. Armed Forces amongst all branches. But nevertheless, a lot of people are also talking about the U.S. forces and their possible upcoming attack against Iranian energy sites. And if this is conducted, will the Gulf states be able to defend their own energy sites from inevitable Iranian counterattacks? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so assuming that the U.S. follows through with their threat to strike the Iranian energy sites all across the country, do you think the Gulf states will be able to fend for themselves, or are they going to be in some deep trouble if Iran starts launching reciprocal strikes? It looks like 55% of the audience said no, the Gulf states are not going to be in good shape, and their interceptors will likely end up running out, while 25% said yes, they will defend well enough, and 15% said I'm 50-50 on this one. So I would say this, there's a big difference between Iran targeting a military base inside these Gulf states versus targeting the energy infrastructure. there's largely not a lot of defenses around the infrastructure. There's a lot of defenses around the bases, because obviously that's where the U.S. forces are at, and it's also where the Kuwaiti army is located as well. So they concentrate their defenses at those locations. But around the energy sites and desalination plants, it's not as concentrated as the bases when it comes to air defenses. So I would say that they'll be able to defend themselves in the short term. They have enough interceptors right now and enough stockpile to fire at most of the missiles and drones coming in from Iran. But the problem is, though, if Iran keeps it up and tries to overwhelm over the course of several days, that's when they start running into a big problem. And we saw that the last time that Iran tried to target the desalination plants. They did a consistent strike campaign to wear out the interceptors using cheap drones, and then they sent the missiles in once the interceptors were exhausted at that point. So I'm with the 55%. Over the course of time, unfortunately, I think the interceptors will run out, and then the U.S. has a big problem, is then they have to get more to those countries in the midst of an active, ongoing missile attack, which is extremely difficult. So, Enforcer, what say you?
I wanted to say that their interceptors would most likely run out, and they probably get overwhelmed by Iranian counterattacks, as we do understand that Patriot stocks are incredibly low for the United States currently, and we are able to understand that there is clear proof of that, because the United States just had to fulfill, or largely put out, a $57 billion acquisition order for PAC-3 Patriots from defense industries here in the United States of America, showing that there is a significant shortage, or a significant amount of them have been expended, and munition counts are low. This means that whatever munitions that the Gulf states have at the moment is really all that they have to deal with, because the United States is mostly going to be prioritizing its own self-defense stocks of Patriot air defense missiles before they start sending out export orders to Gulf state nations and European countries, meaning that right now air defense is at a premium in most countries within the Middle East. That means that if the Islamic Republic of Iran starts to conduct attacks against these countries, and the only air defense that they have is Patriots, they will have to fling a several million dollar Patriot missile at a $40,000 drone every single time one comes into the airspace. As far as the spending war goes, that war is one that cannot be won on our side, and eventually the drones and ballistic missiles would start to overwhelm their air defenses, largely grinding them down into non-existence, and then would be able to strike whatever targets they would wish within the area. Meaning that generally this might not be that great of an idea, because we may see that the damage within the Gulf state nations is actually far greater and far more damaging to us than the damage we inflicted on Iran really was to their economy or their military and strategic capabilities. Because the Iranian strategic capabilities, folks, will be able to carry on even with the complete cessation of electricity, because one, all of their weapon systems generally are mobile and operated off of diesel generators or some sort of a power provided by the vehicle, and also additionally, the other thing that we have to consider is that they have a significant number of weapons that have been stockpiled inside of their missile cities and caves throughout the country over the course of decades, meaning that there is going to be no such thing as a supply shortage that immediately comes into place, because they're not producing a ballistic missile and then having to ship it direct to the frontline units that are firing against us. They're able to go to the missile cities and the stockpiles of missiles they have within those missile storage sites and access those instead, meaning that they would be able to continue on military activities probably for months, which would make it an incredibly difficult situation for us to work with, because while we did knock out their power plants, we really wouldn't be able to, we really wouldn't see a reprieve, is the best way to put it, from continuing Iranian military actions for the foreseeable future during the short term of the next 6 months. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. But moving us on out of that, we have also seen, not only within Kuwait, but within Iraq today, there was a significant fire at the Al Abdab oil field within Iraq. The cause is generally unknown, at least at the moment, but it is quite a significant fire. It may have been Iraqi militia activities or pro-Iranian militia activities that saw this happen within their territory. It's a little bit unclear, but hopefully we'll be able to get some further information from the Iraqi government, maybe. But that's only if they can get their act together. They're not going to give us any information, like, oh, we're being honest.
Also, by the way, that's just flaring right there. That's all that is.
Oh yeah, that looks like totally normal, like industrial activity, really.
I love it, man. Every single time I show like a video, like on a shore war video or something like that in the midday, there's always at least 5 or 10 people that comes in like, that's always just flaring. It's like, that's not flaring. Yeah, like you telling me like a nuclear style like oil explosion is a flare. It's like, what the? And it'll always be somebody like from an oil state. They'll be like, I live in Texas my whole life and I know what a flare looks like.
So
it's like, well, you apparently don't, because that's an explosion.
Man, it's like also, man, it's like, do you know what dementia looks
I could
like?
eat the
It's
whole
just like,
thing.
you know, it's like, honestly,
I just ate about probably a little more than a quarter of that.
Several hundred feet wide. that either is a brand new oil flare that we've never heard of, or that's the damn biggest one in the world and just got in the Guinness Book of World Records. Either way, it's not normal. But outside of that, we also were able to see that within southwest, actually moving us on from that clip, and bringing us on into Israel, there was some Israeli air activity that was reported within southern Israel over the course of the day. We're not entirely sure why that was there, but we have a little bit of a reason. As we were able to hear that, of course, the U.S. is trying to get the Israelis in on the strikes coming up here in the near future against the Islamic Republic of Iran, and they're trying to see if the Israelis will join us for that final push over the top. So maybe they will, maybe they won't. We'll have to see. We are not entirely sure what the position of the Israelis are at this point in terms of providing military assistance to U.S. strategic ambitions within the region. So we'll have to see how they react or if they join in on these strikes.
Man, I have a feeling that you'll know if Israel's involved. If all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, Iran's exploding in literally every inch of their territory, I can almost guarantee you that Israel has to be involved at that point. If the strikes are like if the strikes are like breathtaking and it takes your breath away to look at them, that's got to be Israel's in there somewhere doing something.
I mean, probably, man, that probably would be our best way to find that out, really, because, you know, the Israelis, they don't hold back, do they? You know, they always seem to, like, drop 2,000-pounders, and a lot of them, you know?
Yeah, always.
We also were able to additionally see that within the area of the Arabian Sea, we were able to hear that a satellite picture came out recently from the Sentinel showing the USS Abraham Lincoln or the USS George H.W. Bush about 20 nautical miles east of the Omani coastline. So it's actually quite close to the Omani coastline. It's about right there. But for geolocation purposes, that's not really concerning, folks, because, in short, an aircraft carrier is always moving at about 30 miles an hour usually. So if it was there when that satellite picture was taken, it's probably well beyond there from this point. So moving us on out of our Middle Eastern news, it's now time for us to pop on over and into the United States of America for a couple of brief developments over here, because we have been able to see, folks, that over the course of this day, there have been quite some interesting developments. I mean, some very interesting ones that have come out of the United States of America that are going to be sort of segueing us on into the situation with the war in Ukraine. And making a hop, skip, and a jump over the United States, we will stop in Morocco really quickly, because we were able to hear that Russia has imported about 30,000 tons of gasoline from Morocco to ease the fuel shortages caused by Ukrainian drone attacks on major refineries. In reality, this isn't really going to do a lot to help out the Russians. They're still going to have crippling fuel shortages, but this helps them to get out some fuel for the people who might need it, or to maintain basic functions of the military and also the government during this time of crisis within the Russian Federation. Russia has also turned to India, Belarus, and Kazakhstan for fuel, while domestic gasoline production has fallen sharply because of the ongoing Ukrainian drone attacks against the Russian Federation, of which there were more today. Also, I'm sure that many of y'all will know that there has been a whole deal going on. Like, yesterday we weren't going to report on it because it seemed to be a little bit of a domestic political thing. But to give y'all a little bit of a synopsis of what's happened with the whole Suda affair, if we want to call it that, a couple of thousand migrants basically charged the border with Spain yesterday in this area, which is Spain's small enclave basically along the Moroccan coastline. Thousands of them stormed the city yesterday and started to loot and largely pillage the city. It looks like, quite literally like the invasion of the Mongol army in like the 13th century AD. And so because of that, it's actually caused a pretty significant, I guess you could say, a row within the European Union, because now a large amount of countries, even including the Republic of France, are stating that Spain should be suspended from the Schengen area, which is basically the free transit EU citizen has throughout the European Union, because of the ongoing migrant crisis that's now going on in Ceuta, because they're concerned that those migrants, once they make it into Spain, and Spain possibly gives them refugee status, they can just start free-flowing throughout the whole of Europe, and they're not entirely sure if these people pose security concerns or whatnot, so a large amount of European countries are actually wanting to boot Spain out of the Schengen area for that.
Also, by the way, people are saying 60,000 people. Is that the number that you've heard?
No. I heard like 7,000, I believe.
Let me pull this up real quick. I'm kind of curious at this point. Let's see, Spain. Let's see here what the number is. I see a lot of people saying 60,000. They're saying, so Visegrad 24 said more than 50,000 illegal migrants broken through. Man, that's crazy, man. That's like now look at us, folks. If a lot of these people are like fighting age males, I mean, you could easily make the argument that this is an invasion, like easily. I mean, that's a large amount of forces right there. I mean, let's just take for example, let's say there's like people in there that's intending to do damage, like hybrid warfare or something. I mean, that's a lot of people right there, and these people are running in there and being chaotic and committing crimes and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody's like orchestrating this or something, but certainly, I mean, 50,000 people, that's crazy.
50,000, dude. That's literally one of the armies of old. Like, dude, the siege of Vienna. I think the Ottomans had like 60,000 troops at the siege of Vienna. One of the biggest battles, mind you, all of the 17th century. And apparently that's the amount that went into Ceuta. What is the population of Ceuta, anyways? I thought it was like around that number. I think.
I mean, isn't it? I mean, yeah. I mean, what is the population of that place, real quick? Because I mean, if 50,000 people invading the place and like the population is like similar to it or something, I mean, technically it's getting occupied.
Damn. So this is almost a number of like the natives versus basically an invasion of migrants, almost a 1-to-1, because the population of Ceuta is around 83,000 people. So there's almost one migrant for every citizen of Ceuta at this point in that area right now.
And also, it's growing, by the way. Like, it's not static. The number is growing over the days. So not to mention, that's going to collapse their infrastructure there because they can't feed that many people, number one. Number two, they can't do law enforcement either because that's too many people and it outnumbers law enforcement, I'm sure. And it's like, you know, what do they do? Like send in the military and try to basically reinvade their own territory, the Spanish military to retake it? It's like, I mean, that's wild, really.
I mean, honestly, my question is, where the hell do they come from? Like, didn't they see them kind of like wandering through Morocco up here? I mean, there's a city here called Nidek that looks to be just south of Ceuta. It's like, didn't anyone like say like there's like a huge army of like just like military age dudes just wandering up to Ceuta? You know, like it's like how in the world like. Honestly, man, it's kind of a little bit interesting that such a large group, I mean, it's quite literally like a field army from like the Napoleonic era. It's like, how in the world did they just go unnoticed until they wandered up onto the Spanish border in Ceuta?
I don't know, that's probably why they're so angry with, it's Morocco where they came from,
yes,
that's where they're saying they came from?
Yeah.
And that's probably why they're so pissed off and angry, and also probably that's why Italy's up in arms too about it, would be my guess. But it's like, what the hell is Morocco doing, not warning people and you know, not going out of their way to like make sure these people can't go invade like the neighbor like that, or swim across and go invade Spanish territory? I mean, I'll be honest, folks. Like this to me seems like this might be something concerted. I'm not sure if maybe like a hostile power like Russia might be trying to like push this forward or something like that. I'm not sure what it is, but I mean, this is unbelievable.
1 second, I want to pull this up. That adds up. Man, where are these people from? Are they from Morocco? Like these people who crossed into Ceuta?
I think they're from the continent of Africa, I'm pretty sure.
Well, let's see. Can you find that information for us? Like, do they have like any understanding of where they're from? Because I mean, it would be kind of odd. I mean, for them to just come from like Africa in general, because I'm sure that they weren't like hoofing it over the Sahara or anything. So they had to come from somewhere nearby. I feel like most of them are Moroccan. And I want to get an answer to that here really quickly before I throw out my conspiracy theory, because I think I have a pretty Loctite one if they're mostly Moroccan.
So it says here, it just says they came from Morocco. It appears to be, they're just calling them migrants. They're not really saying exactly like what nationality they are for the most part. Just looking at the crowd, it's really kind of hard to tell. There's a mix of everybody in the crowd there, it looks like. They're definitely young males. It seems like the majority of these people are young males for the most part, about 20 to 30 to maybe in that range or so. I mean, these are not like what you call feeble, like, folks looking for a new home, like to get somewhere just to like settle down. These people are acting wild.
So everybody in the chat, Matthew, is saying they're mostly from Morocco, and apparently some people are laying out the rumor that Morocco cleared out some of their prisons and kind of did the Belarusian trick of let's just kind of like corral them across the border. And you know what's interesting about that is that Morocco has had an ongoing border dispute over the territorial sovereignty of Ceuta, and they have claimed for a very long time that it's theirs. So it could be that this is an orchestrated sort of an attempt by the Moroccans to literally just flood into Ceuta, basically a whole bunch of migrants, and say, well, it's basically just ours at this point, or to make it so difficult for Spain to be able to control Ceuta in any meaningful way that Morocco goes, look, we can just take it off of your hands and it can become a part of Morocco. You know, that might be a deal you might be willing to take. That might be what it is, because it seems a little bit weird to me, folks, like, if we're being honest here. Out of everywhere that they could have come from, they come from Morocco. There isn't really an easy way to get here. You know, it's just say, like, kind of like just hoofing it. Like, if you're, like, a legitimate migrant or a refugee or whatnot, and you have literally no money at all, and you're trying to get somewhere where there is money to make some, it's like, well, they're not going to be hoofing it over the Sahara or anything like that, you know, to be able to get to the spot. So they had to have come from Morocco. And if they come
swimming. They're all swimming across. Like you saw these. Like, we can't show the video sadly because it's mainly been taken by mainstream media that takes it. It'll copyright the hell out of us. I've shown those videos, but I mean, there's a video after video of like literally like humongous like packs of people like swimming like onto the beaches and just running ashore. Like it looks like the Normandy landings or something like that, like D-Day.
Well, yeah, they had to swim around this wall right here. So they from what I heard, they made it down this beach. Like they just literally bypassed the customs. God forbid. But they walked down the beach and then they just swam around the wall and then they started making their way down this beach from all the footage that I saw, and then they started flooding into the city itself. So they had they're not swimming from like the mainland of Africa, because I don't really think there's a marathon swimmer they can do a couple of 100 miles. They're just swimming around the wall. But they came from Morocco up to Ceuta, then swam around. Honestly, folks, this sounds to me like the Moroccans are taking a page out of Belarus's book, where Belarus got all of those Syrian refugees, flew them up to Belarus, and then started corralling them with tear gas and batons to try and flood across the Polish border. It sounds to me very similar, and it sounds like the Spanish did not see this coming, or they just didn't really consider that to be a problem, and now it's a problem.
Yeah, really. I'm not sure really how strongly people feel about that. But I mean, if a country is being invaded, it doesn't matter if the people have a military uniform on or not. It's like, if people are flooding across the border, I mean, in my opinion, that's a military situation at that point, where you defend your country at all costs. That's the way I look at it. I know some people might take that as an extreme way, but I mean, if you let tens of thousands of people like flood into an area that's really small, like this area here of Spanish territory, I mean, it can easily get occupied like it has been, and it's really hard to get it back at that point. So I'm not sure what Spain's planning on doing about that. I've heard that they are trying to like deploy like their National Guard forces or something to go deal with it. But it's like, once you have that many people in there, it's like, what do you do at that point? Like try to round them all up and arrest them all, or like what's their plan?
I mean, honestly, man. I mean, if I was in the government in Spain, I would look at this as a state of national emergency. Well, not national emergency, but regional emergency. I mean, really, the only thing I can think of, folks, is it's basically lawlessness. I mean, basically having one. If we want to call, like, I'm trying to think of the right, we'll just call them migrants for the hell of the discussion. But if you have one migrant for every single citizen in that region, that is a state of lawlessness, basically. None of them have been processed. The Spanish government doesn't know who they are or what they're doing there, and we also don't know if they're going to be trying to travel further on out of Ceuta, completely out of the confines of any sort of processing by Spanish border guard authorities or the Spanish border guards. So there's literally no documentation for them at all. That's a significant concern, and not only that, they could pose a significant risk to public safety. So really, though, what I would do is I would declare a state of emergency or martial law within Ceuta and deploy the military to start rounding them up, temporarily detaining them, and then kicking them back into Ceuta, and then not Ceuta, but into Morocco, and then put a military guard along the border. That's what I would do, because like this situation, and I'm not trying to get into the domestic political discussion here, folks, but this situation is quite literally out of control at that point. If that's the number, you really can't. There's no way that you can go, well, maybe we can discuss it with them. It's like, no, this is way out of control. Like, this has gone beyond anything that requires any semblance of reason. This is an emergency situation that a handle has to get put on immediately.
Yeah, I'm not a Spanish citizen personally, but if I was a Spanish citizen or I was in the government over there, I'd be one to set a strong example over this, because if countries in Europe start letting stuff like this happen, it's like this is going to become more widespread, because it's going to tell other countries, like if Morocco did this on purpose, which is not really clear if they did, it's going to tell other countries you can just start doing this and you'll largely get away with it. If you successfully send enough people in to go take an area, you can just take it. So, I mean, they should send the military in and make sure that they set an example here on this one to make sure that other people don't try to replicate it.
Also, I saw someone say, well, they didn't come out of Morocco. Well, the thing, like, I would have to say it doesn't really matter where they come from. It seems to me like this is a Moroccan conspiracy, most likely. Like, that's kind of what I'm really thinking at the moment, because there's no way in hell that Morocco just saw a band of 60,000 people and didn't pay attention to them at all, wandering wherever the hell they were. I mean, that would get the attention of any government. Like, people don't really know this, folks, but when the migrants come flooding up to the U.S. border, they're usually coming from countries like Guatemala, and as soon as they cross the border, because it's usually in a giant group, into Mexico, the Mexican government has an eye on, because they're also concerned. They're like, this is a giant crowd. We don't know if they're going to create a state of lawlessness wherever they go or start looting and pillaging, so we got to keep them corralled in. So there's no way in hell Morocco just didn't know about this. I mean, they had to have known about it, and I'm guessing that they either corralled them up to Ceuta, or they just let them wander up to Ceuta if they wanted to, and they didn't do anything to stop them or even notify the Spanish government until the crisis was literally upon the Spanish in Ceuta. And this might be some sort of a larger conspiracy, at least kind of what I'm thinking. But I would have to be honest with y'all, folks. This one's quite an interesting one. Also, by the way, folks, to add in the Schengen area deal, because we'll have a mention of this later on, not to get into a huge rabbit hole, but the Schengen area is the European Union agreement that there is absolutely no borders or customs inspections as far as international travel throughout the European Union, and so citizens from Spain can travel freely throughout the whole of Europe like it's the United States and elsewhere. And a large amount of major countries in the European Union as of today are actually demanding that Spain be removed from the Schengen area for a temporary period until they get the situation under control. So that's a direct result of the situation that's happening right now. But we actually have breaking news coming out. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so Iran has just begun laying siege in the Strait of Hormuz right now, apparently. It looks like Iranian forces have begun launching missiles at vessels in the strait, and there's one vessel that's confirmed to have been struck by what appears to be an Iranian missile that hit the engine room, and they're saying the ship is no longer in command. I don't have the name of the ship right now, but it appears to have been taking or nearby to the Omani route, close to the Omani coast, which the U.S. forces are telling ships to take. So it appears to be it got struck right around that area. So I would not be surprised to hear about more of these. We heard about allegedly 2 of them earlier today that apparently got struck, and Iran put out some little short video that was very vague, showing 2 different vessels on fire, apparently in the video. So it looks like they're back at it pretty heavily again, which tells me, once again, Iran is not looking for peace. I think that's pretty obvious at this point. I'm Captain Obvious with that one. I think most people would agree with that, except for the government at this point. But it's a pretty serious attack. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to say it is quite a serious attack, and it does look like the Iranians are continuing to try and conduct their reign of terror on commercial ships within the Strait of Hormuz and stop any passages of oil tankers or any other vessels in or out of the Strait of Hormuz, as they are still attempting illegal control of the entirety of the waters, including the international corridors used for trade and travel within the area. So it looks as though that sort of a situation is still continuing, and once again showing that the United States has to take military actions of extreme measures to be able to try and bring the situation to a victory, or at least to return it back to the status quo. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion.
Real quick, go check Flight Radar 24 real quick and see what the U.S. Air Force air activity is looking like, because I'm kind of curious. If Iran's launching stuff right now, then what's the Air Force doing? Are they nearby? Are they patrolling? Or like what are they doing right now?
Let's see here. They are currently... I'm betting a lot of them do not have transponders on. We can see... Oh, actually, that's not a U.S. aircraft.
What's that one right there in the middle of the Persian Gulf that's out there in the middle?
That's a KC-135 doing refueling loops. So there's one out there that has a transponder on, but there might be several more, or it may be that the U.S. air presence is largely non-existent today.
Interesting. I would assume it's out there supporting fighter jet activity, I would assume. So you would wonder, it's like if there is fighter jets that are active out there and they're flying around patrolling, it's like, why aren't they hitting the anti-ship site? They just launched the anti-ship missiles at that vessel near Oman. It's like, it seems like that'd be a logical thing to do, but kind of interesting that they apparently haven't.
And that's something. It's also something that they're already getting hit anyways, because like there's a constant U.S. air cover over the area. It's like, how in the world are ships always getting hit But you know, I guess that's a question we'll never get an answer to, at least for now. But moving us on from that breaking news development, down inside the Strait of Hormuz, we just got news, folks, that another ship was attacked. Before we move on into our U.S. news, or the rest of it, because we still have a little bit to go here, before we move on into Europe, I do want to make sure, folks, to take a brief moment to be able to get to some questions. And I also got to thank everyone who's been here so far tonight. Over the course of an hour and 7 minutes, we have seen that a whopping, let's see here, 17,500 people have been here at the peak, and around 74,000 people have watched this stream over the course of the first hour and 7 minutes. We're always entirely honored and greatly appreciative of some of y'all being here, and we hope that y'all stay around, because right after these questions, we have a significant amount of breaking news to get to from the United States and also Eastern Europe with the ongoing war in Ukraine. And so, with that, before we move on into that, Matthew, what do we got?
Alright, so jumping into our first of the 3 super chats, and getting right back to our breaking news, which I have a feeling we're about to get some more out of the Middle East here in just a second. We have our first super chat, which goes to Eric Brown. And thank you very much, Eric, for the largest super chat of the night, a $100 support, and we appreciate it very much. It's that support, like we say, like a broken record all the time, that is the support that keeps our channel running. We do appreciate that very much. And Eric said, the scariest thing I see in the pictures coming out of all of that is fighting age young men.
I saw a lot of videos of it yesterday, and generally I didn't want to touch it because it usually becomes a political topic. Anything to do with immigration. I mean, there's going to be people build a wall, you know, and it's like I don't want to get into that side of things because it just becomes uninformed. But outside, like as far as like it doesn't have a lot of like intelligence usually behind the argument points. But I would say that this is an absolutely ridiculous sort of a situation going on in Spain, because now that we're getting a lot more details of it today, I mean, there's really no way in hell, being completely frank with anybody, that anybody can say, oh, well, you know, it's just the poor military-aged migrants, you know, all traveling in a literal army-sized element into a small province of Spain on the African coast. It's like, you really can't make that argument. You know, it's like, that's just a matter of a loss of control. It's a descent into lawlessness. And at the moment, I would, like, that region is in a state of emergency or is descended into a state of lawlessness. It's like the region has gained twice the number of people within it, population-wise. Half of them are undocumented at all, and we don't know who they are, what they are, whether they have a criminal background in the country that they came from, or what kind of a mindset or a psychological capacity they have. I mean, they might be prone to extreme violence. It's like we literally don't know these people from Adam. So it's like, you know, I don't, like, I'm not a big fan of that at all. Like, it's like, I'm not a big fan of that at all. If I was in charge of Spain, I would be flipping out right now. I don't, like, and to be entirely honest with y'all folks, I don't even know how in the world you would go about this, because you would literally have to declare a state of absolute martial law in Ceuta and just go around rounding them up as quickly as you could, and then immediately expelling them to wherever the hell they could go, or putting them in some sort of a temporary holding area until you can figure out a country that's willing to take them. Like, it's an insane situation.
And also, it's like, you know, if these are so-called people just trying to find a new life, like a better life, it's like, why are they immediately entering the country, breaking and entering into homes, like robbing cars and committing crimes all over the place? It's like, that doesn't seem like a people that are trying to, like, you know, be calm and simply come in there and, like, try to build a life. It's like, I get they might be desperate, they might be hungry, but it's like, if their first thought is to jump in there and start committing crimes all over the place, that's not a good first start, and that's not a good sign either. And also, I mean, the fact of literally invading the place and illegally entering, that's a crime in itself. It's just that, I mean, we can delve into bizarro world if we want to, where it's like, oh, well, maybe they should. It's like, no, they're illegally entering. They can't enter the country like that, and especially not by the 50,000 plus. It's like, that's insane.
And also, some people will be, oh, well, you know, they're disenfranchised people. It's like, yeah, they're disenfranchised people, but it's like a country has a national right to limit how many disenfranchised people they let in, or if they let any of them in at all. And it's like, you can't, like anybody who's trying to make the argument, it's completely senseless. Like, I'm just going to be frank. Anyone who's trying to make the argument, oh, well, that's totally fine, you know, and if they're like pillaging and looting, it's just because they come from a different environment. It's like, well, that's not what Spain's about. Like, it's like, you know, it's like, you don't see people in Spain just going around going, oh, I feel quite hungry, throwing a brick through someone's window and then climbing in to steal whatever they got in the pantry. You know, it's like, that's not really a Spanish kind of a mindset, or really a Western kind of a mindset. So it's like, I don't really get the argument there. It's like, if anyone conducts if for the fact that they're there at all and that they illegally enter the country, that's grounds for deportation immediately. But in conducting any violent acts,
That's not acceptable anywhere, though. It's like, not just for Spain or any other country. It's like, name a country anywhere, like even countries that aren't like you're really like high-end, that allows you to go around committing crimes and breaking into places without some type of punishment. I mean, you do that in some countries, and they'll simply chop your hand off over it and stuff like that. It's like, that's not acceptable anywhere. But apparently these people are invading thinking they're pushovers, and they'll just do whatever the hell they want in these countries they're invading.
Like honestly, I'm sitting here, man, I'm thinking about it. It's like, how the hell do you even deal with this? It's like, honestly, man, it's like...
You don't let it happen in the first place.
Well,
that's number one.
Well, yeah, but now that it's happened, it's like, how in the world did they even deal with this in Spain? It's like, you would have to send in the whole Spanish army to deal with this, basically, because I don't think they have an incredibly large ground force. Either it be the National Guard or the regular army. It's like, you would have to quite literally send in the whole army and the National Guard to probably try and get the situation under control. This is like, to be entirely honest with y'all folks, like this situation here, it's basically like a medieval siege. It's like the enemy's gotten into the city, and now you got to bring in a relief army to try and get them out, because it's like I'm like thinking, damn, it's gonna be insane. There's probably I've already seen the clips of people busting into houses and whatnot, and also trying to beat up the locals. And I've heard some people in the chat say that apparently some locals have been killed, unfortunately. But it's like, you basically have to send the army in and just say it is an absolute state of chaos. You're really going to have to go street by street, finding these people, holding them at gunpoint and detaining them. And if they're not going to be detained and they're conducting violent actions, then you have to take whatever actions, lethal or non-lethal, you have to take to bring the situation under control.
Bring in the skunk trucks, those ones that have the skunk water that Israel loves to use. Bring those in, bring in the LRADs, bring in all the riot control measures to push them back toward the shore. And then once you get them back to the shore, obviously they either have to swim out of the area, swim back out into the water, or you can detain them on the beaches or something. But it's like you have to corral them into one spot so that way you can start detaining them. Otherwise they're scattered everywhere and it's impossible.
I mean, you could do that. Another thing you could do is that you could have the military start detaining them in the thousands, and you could set up some sort of a temporary holding facility. And when I mean temporary, I quite literally mean temporary, out here in these hills, in the non-populated area, and figure out where they're going from there. Or if you can't, the reality of it is, folks, is that if nobody's willing to take them, like Morocco says, we're not taking them back, then you just got to hold them there indefinitely. And it's like, well, damn, it's like that's going to be something. Or they could just do the same thing that Morocco did and just put them all back on the beach and, corral them by prodding them and poking them until they swim back across the border and back into Morocco. That's another option, because if Morocco was willing to let this happen to Spain, I don't really think anyone in the world could really have any point or scruple with Spain doing it in turn to get them back out. So I don't know. It's a wild situation, though. I will tell you all that. I mean, this is something quite literally that is unheard of in the modern day. And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, but the migrants though, the guys who ride the boats across the English Channel. Yeah, that's a couple of dozen at a time. That's a totally different thing than literally an army-sized element. An army group literally wandering right across the border into someone's territory. That's a totally different can of worms. I mean, you can get a police squad out there on a beach to deal with 30 guys hopping off a boat. This literally takes an entire army to probably deal with at this point. Totally different problem. I mean, this is of an unbelievable metric. But we'll have to see how the Spanish deal with it. Because right now I haven't really been hearing a lot of Spanish governmental statements on the situation. So, we'll have to see how it all turns out. But anyways, also, by the way, folks, on kind of the bright side, though, regardless of however Spain deals with it, they're probably about to get kicked out of the Schengen area. So if you're in Europe and you're saying, oh, this is crazy, well, it's not like anyone's going to be leaving Spain, because they're going to have to go through customs at the French border or the Italian border if they somehow get there. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And a huge thanks to you once again for support, Eric, and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a $50 support from Jeff Erlong. And thank you very much, Jeff, for that 50 as well. And we do appreciate that very much. And of course, that does help the channel keep running. And Jeff said, love you guys.
Hey, and a big thanks to you for support, Jeff Erlong, and helping this channel to keep it running. And we love all the folks out there in the LSA. And I gotta say, humongous thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on to the rest of the news for the night.
And this one goes to Slim Jim, who put in a 50. And thank you, Slim Jim, as well for that $50 support. And also, by the way, if you've thrown in a super chat beyond this point, we will get those during the second question segment. So don't worry, we're coming around to it here shortly. But getting back to Slim Jim's 50, and thank you once again for that support. They said, buy you and your bro some of them yummy Costco chickens and some Diet Cokes, and keep up the most excellent reporting in LSA.
Hey, and a big thanks to your support, and that Costco chicken and that Diet Coke fun. I've never seen a thin person drink Diet Dr. Coke, so I think I'm probably going to be the only one taking
Dr.
advantage
Coke?
of that. Diet Dr. Pepper, I think is what it was, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Pepper or Coke. You mix them both together.
I've never seen a thin person drink a Diet Coke, so I don't think Matthew's going to be taking advantage of that part of the fun, but I certainly will. Okay, so I got to thank you greatly for that support and helping this channel to keep running. Along with the Lee Spring Army, the Lee Springer will never die, and thanks to amazing support like yours, we'll be able to keep this channel running. And so with that, it is time for us folks to move on out of that question segment and that rabbit hole on the situation in Suda and on over and into America, as we were able to hear unfortunate news today, folks, that an F-35, and we will not be able to show the video, did catch on fire today at the Marine Corps Air Station Miramar in San Diego. From what we understand, there was some sort of an engine failure at some point in the aircraft's operation. The pilot is safe and apparently has really no injuries, but the aircraft does appear to be a complete loss. It's set on fire in a field and burned to the ground. These things do happen from time to time, and I know that a lot of people are going to be like, well, it's a very expensive plane, and that's true, but there is not a single U.S. military aircraft that has not had some sort of a peacetime incident where they've crashed or they've had an engine failure or the pilots mishandled the aircraft. Things like that do happen sometimes in the military, and this is just another one of those unfortunate incidents. We have also been able to hear as well that in Minnesota, there was a significant cyber attack that happened today, and the Washington Post has reported that the U.S. intelligence agencies have assessed Iran was likely behind a coordinated cyber attack targeting more than 30 municipal water systems in Minnesota. Though officials say the assessment is not yet definitive, and the FBI's investigation remains ongoing. According to the Post, the attack disrupted control systems at multiple water facilities, but did not contaminate drinking water or cause widespread service outages. The report notes federal cybersecurity officials have warned for months that Iranian cyber actors have been targeting internet-connected industrial control systems used by U.S. water, wastewater, and energy facilities. Previous Iranian-linked cyber attacks have targeted water infrastructure, including incidents involving Pennsylvania utilities and repeated CISA warnings about Iranian exploitation of programmable logic controllers, but those cases were narrow in scope and attributed after law enforcement investigations rather than through contemporaneous intelligence assessment. So we are seeing that, unfortunately, there was a significant cyber attack that was conducted in Minnesota today against the water infrastructure of some of the localities. Luckily, nothing really came of it, but it is still somewhat concerning. I also got to say...
You know what's crazy about that is that's the exact same method that the U.S. intelligence agencies used to sabotage the centrifuges that Iran was using to enrich their uranium. Back in the day, they injected a script into their systems and specifically targeted the industrial controllers, those systems that control the centrifuges, and that's how they sabotaged. They messed up the frequency of the rotations and messed up the enrichment process. That's exactly apparently what Iran did to the water facilities too. They got into those industrial controllers and did a number on them.
Yeah, I would have to say it does appear that they did use a very similar sort of a system, a hack in a sense, to be able to try and get into the infrastructure. But I would also have to say it's quite concerning that they can't do that, because it's like, you know, what kind of damage could they end up conducting? And it's not going to be anything bad. It's not like they have like the arsenic bottle in every single water facility and they can just tack into the mainframe and have the arsenic pour into the water. It's like, why the hell would a water management facility have poisons connected to the water supply where they just pump those in at any minute? So it's not really like any real damage could come out of this, rather than the fact that maybe sewage could be left untreated and then recirculated into the water supply. That's a possibility. But still somewhat concerning that they were able to get into the systems at all. Outside of that, though, and getting us on into finally some Ukraine war news and moving us on into that, we have also seen that the President of the United States has officially done a 180 on the Ukraine getting Patriot license production capabilities. As many of you all will know, just a few days ago, there was a question that was asked to us about the United States and their current foreign policy position on Ukraine. And I said, oh, well, you know, it's like, you know, honestly, it's like the U.S. position hasn't changed. Words are, actions are louder than words, and the U.S.'s actions have show that they're still not in support of Ukraine at all. They just kind of make it sound like in words that they're kind of in support, in a way of Ukraine. And Matthew said, well, I don't know about that. What about those PAC-3 missile license production rights that Ukraine just got? And I said, oh, hell, the president will back out of that probably within the next few weeks. Matthew said that 2 days ago, and we were already getting reports yesterday that the president had backed out. It has become official today that the president is completely backed out of providing licensing rights to the state of Ukraine. And we've now heard that the president has warned that they must be very careful about giving weapons licenses to Ukraine. So now it went from Ukraine is worthy of getting weapon licenses to now it's extremely dangerous to give weapon licenses to Ukraine, and we have to be extremely careful about it. Additionally, we also were able to hear that the president then added that the U.S. had not agreed to provide Patriot missiles to Ukraine, but they were just talking about it. The comments come weeks after he said that Washington would grant Kyiv a license to manufacture certain U.S. military equipment. So now we're understanding that it went from Zelensky is going to get licensed production, which was said quite literally just a few weeks ago by the president, to now today he's saying that they never even agreed to that, and they were just conversating about it, and that they might get it at some point in the future, but they're really not. So it appears that whole thing was just a wash. Like, I'll be honest with y'all folks, I felt like it was going to be a wash when we saw it coming around the pipe. When I heard they're getting the license production rights, I was like, I don't really know about that. I was like, I don't believe that's going to be happening. And it looks like they backed out of it quite literally before it could ever even be implemented. So Ukraine just did a whole bunch of legwork figuring out who could license produce the packs for them, or if they could produce them on their own home soil, for it to all be for naught, because now we're not going to give them licensing rights. So, you know, it is what it is at this point. What can I tell you?
That's concerning, though. That's really concerning me. I can kind of understand on one hand why the U.S. might not be giving a whole bunch of Patriot interceptors to Ukraine from our stockpiles, because we're running through them like crazy in the Middle East, like legitimately. Like, we really can't afford to give away too many of them right now, because we have no other way to defend our partner states in the region in the Middle East. And if they start getting hit, that can result in the desalination plants and everything going out, which could create a humongous humanitarian crisis, way bigger than anything in Ukraine would ever be, in my personal opinion. So it is disappointing, though, to hear that apparently they're not going to let them license produce them, or at least right now they're withholding that decision. I'm not really sure why. I heard some argument earlier today that they're worried Ukraine could turn on the United States later on down the road, but, I mean, there's ways around that. They could simply let Poland house the facility and then send them into Ukraine, possibly, or something like that. They could just simply let something like that happen instead.
Yeah, they could. It doesn't make any sense at all, because we're not offering to even give them Patriots, the 300 that they were asking for, just to try and get them through the winter, and now we're also not going to let them license produce it as well. So we went from the U.S. saying we are going to try and help them in some way to where they're quite literally getting no help at all. And also, folks, pairing that with the fact that the Department of Defense said they're not going to give the $400 million to Ukraine until this president's term has ended in 2029. Kind of makes it clear to me, folks, that the whole statement is currently by the U.S. government about actually the Ukrainians are actually the good guys. That's a whole bunch of BS. They don't believe that at all, because all their actions are showing that they're actually cutting out even farther support, literally pennies at this point, to make sure that the Ukrainians don't get a damn thing. They don't get a single missile. They don't even get the rights to make the missiles for themselves. They don't get any money. They don't get anything. At this point, the U.S. is quite literally providing not a damn thing to the state of Ukraine in any ways whatsoever. And what's wildly bizarre about that, folks, is that while we're not willing to give our allied nation any military support, the Russians and the Chinese are more than willing to funnel any and every type of military support that they can to the Iranians, which we're trying to fight. So right now the Iranians have a bit of an upper hand, because they're able to get support from all of their Axis powers, but our allied nations and our sphere of influence don't even get support from the main part of the sphere of influence, which is the United States. So the Chinese are more than willing to take on a little bit of a loss and go through weapons to the Iranians so they can fight us pennies on the dollar for what it would cost them to fight the United States. But then when it comes to Ukrainians fighting the Russians for us pennies on the dollar, we can't give them squat. It's a little interesting with that. But we actually have more breaking news coming out at this moment. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so we have a very odd piece of breaking news right now. This is actually, believe it or not, coming out of a region we don't cover a whole bunch these days. It's North Korea, actually. North Korea just put out a pretty wild statement right now, saying that the expansion of U.S. forces in Japan is turning the country into what they call a war state, and that the U.S. is bringing a deep, ominous fortune to the region, and they're threatening action against the United States, Japan, and the partners in the region. So they put out a pretty strong statement here. I've never really seen one quite this direct. And also, it looks like it came from the Korean Central News Agency, which I think is the official news agency of North Korea, I believe. So take a look at that. That's kind of interesting, actually.
I'd have to say, this is quite interesting. Also, why the hell are they writing this like it's the damn Peace Village? Like, man, like it's like the Peace Village in Joseon. But anyways, beyond that though, this is a statement by the Korean Central News Agency. The headline is, "The U.S. Army is turning to war command." And this was apparently written quite literally just minutes ago out of Pyongyang. So let's take a read from the Hermit Kingdom. The United States is adding new strategic instability to the Korean Peninsula and the Asia-Pacific region, bringing a deep, ominous fortune. On July 26th, the U.S. military commander said in an interview with a Japanese newspaper that since last year, the U.S. military command in Japan has increased the number of U.S. military commanders in Japan, making it possible to respond quickly, which was not possible before, that it has personnel to maintain the round-the-clock system and all combat functions. In the Asia-Pacific region, we must prepare for the crisis, not on whether or not it will occur, but on the premises of when it will occur. We will be prepared as possible with Japan. And he shrugged it off.
Shrugged it off.
I don't know, man. This is like written by like a kindergartner, man. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Bro, I was hardly making it through the first one. Man, it just says the U.S. military commander said in an interview. It's like, well, who? It's like, who is that? Like, what rank does he hold? And what position is he? But anyways, this is a part of the plan to reorganize the U.S. military command on Sunday as an integrated military command with practical operational command, which has mainly carried out administrative tasks, such as the management of the Japan-U.S. status agreement in the past period, showing that the U.S. military headquarters on Sunday is changing its occupation into a war command that is clearly commanding the U.S. military and its national forces in the region. I guess they've never heard of Indo-PACOM, have they? As is known, since last year, the United States has been reorganizing the U.S. military on Sunday to launch the Unified Forces Command and recognize the U.S. Pacific Command in Hawaii to give some operational command. The basic key to the reorganization of the U.S. military on Sunday, which takes place in the third phase, is the Unified Command of the Self-Defense Force, which was launched in March last year, and the U.S. military's command system on Sunday, so that the U.S. and Japan can conduct operations in the event of a similar situation. In this case, the purpose is to strengthen. The purpose is to strengthen the U.S.'s foreign aggression force with its own field force, which has its own wartime operational capabilities. But the important point is that Japan's self-defense forces will be used as an assault force and a basic combat force for all-out war in the Asia-Pacific region. Already last year, the U.S. embarked on a reorganization of U.S. military headquarters in Japan. Japan will be at the forefront of all the contingencies we face in the Western Pacific. This is a pledge. What does this mean?
A pledge? What does that mean? It's a pledge. A pledge to do what? Like a pledge? Like what are they pledging to do? They didn't really. They explained their grievance, but they didn't say what they're really going to do about it. That part kind of got lost in the midst of that in that mumbo jumbo.
Did you understand any of that? Like, I was reading it, dude. I was busting out laughing because it read like that confession that they made that poor guy, like Warren Breyer, read. Man, it was like, you know, I got money from government of the United States to do crime in North Korea. It's like it's the same like writing.
It's just really wordy, but I mean, the only parts in there that actually matter is the two highlighted red sections. The rest of it's like struggling to get a point across. But they're saying that the U.S. military is now in a war command in the region, and they're saying that they're bringing a deep, ominous fortune to the area. But they fell short though. I was thinking that they were going to say something in here about attacking or taking some sort of action. They fell short of that. So. I don't really know. It sounds like a pretty strong statement, but they're not really saying what they're going to do about it.
But I mean, honestly, man, like if you're reading this though, it just doesn't make any sense. Like it says right here, the U.S. military headquarters on Sunday is changing its occupation into a war command that is clearly commanding the U.S. military and its national forces in the region. It's like that's just Indo-PACOM. Like we're always organized like that. It's not like the U.S. military was just disorganized and not commanding the area until Sunday. You know, it's like this isn't making any sense at all. Like none of and also everything about the writing on this, folks, is vague. It's really more so like a news article that was written for the North Koreans for internal consumption more so than foreign consumption, because they don't write who the U.S. military commander is. They don't say if he's like the PACOM commander or the commander of the U.S. Army in like the U.S. 8th Army in Korea. They don't clarify that at all. They just say U.S. military commander said in an interview, and then they increase the number of U.S. military commanders in Japan. But it's like, well, what does that matter? Like, the U.S. military commander is the one talking, so where are the other commanders coming into the picture? Making it possible to respond quickly. It's like U.S. forces are always structured to respond quickly. That's the whole point of our global command structure and Indo-Pac. Like, honestly, man, this kind of seems like a nothing burger to me. It seems like they're just trying to create something out of nothing, because this is basically just saying Indo-Pac exists and we have a problem with that.
Me personally, I take it to mean that they're starting to get more hostile against the U.S., and that could mean more missile tests. That could mean some sort of like minor provocation or something. I would love to see.
We will have to see. Moving us on out of that news, a wild bit of news to say the least, it's now time for us to move on from the U.S. military commander, and time for us to move on into France, as we were able to hear that the French have made a statement today on the incursion into Polish airspace, and this was a statement by the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs. France condemns in the strongest possible terms the Russian airstrikes in Ukraine that resulted in civilian deaths, as well as Russia's missile violation of Polish airspace. These events prove yet again the extent to which Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine is a threat to European security. Ukraine's security and our collective security are our priorities. France remains committed to seeing Russia end its aggression against Ukraine. It will continue its efforts to strengthen NATO's defensive posture. So that was a brief statement by the French Foreign Ministry today. And also to just add this in, Finland is supporting the exclusion of Spain from the Schengen area due to the migratory situation in Ceuta. And I've also started to hear that the French government is starting to get much more in support of removing Spain from the Schengen area as well as the Ceuta migrant crisis continues. Outside of that, we've also been able to hear that the foreign minister of Lithuania has actually added in. His name is Gabrielis Landsbergis. Gabrielis. Man, that's like a Roman name. Gabrielis Maximus. But Gabrielis Landsbergis, who is the former foreign minister of Lithuania, stated that in his humble opinion, a Russian cruise missile landing in a Polish field is exactly what NATO Article 4 was written for. Amen. Hallelujah. I would agree. But the Polish government has taken a bit more of a backseat sort of a stance on the given situation. As we were able to hear that they did confirm earlier that the missile was in fact a Russian KH-101 caliber cruise missile that had fallen on their territory and that it violated the country's airspace. And according to the deputy defense minister, during the attack, about 20 Russian missiles were flying towards Poland, but most of them were shot down by Ukrainian air defenses. Warsaw does not rule out that the incident could have been a deliberate provocation and warns that similar cases may occur again. And they've started to issue those warnings to the greater public, as the Polish government put out the statement today from the Governmental Security Center, urging citizens to prepare for more attacks after yesterday's Russian missile, asking them to pack emergency bags, locate nearby shelters, and download the safety guide. So we're not seeing the Polish say anything like we're going to shoot the next one down. They're just saying, you know, if another one comes in, make sure that if it goes into a city, it just doesn't like blow anyone up, which, you know, is a little bit of a very passive sort of a mindset. And they've also summoned the Russian ambassador to ask him why in the world a Russian missile flew into Poland and blew up on Polish territory 50 kilometers south of a major city. So that was a statement by Donald Tusk. So it does appear that at the moment the Polish are actually taking a lot more of a reserved sort of a stance on the situation than, to be entirely honest, I was actually originally anticipating, to be frank with everyone. I thought the Polish were going to be going ham over this whole deal. In reality, the Polish are taking this about as slowly and as cautiously as they could. They weren't even willing to say that it was a Russian missile yesterday. They said it's highly likely a Russian missile, but we are not entirely sure, when it was literally a missile involved in attacks on Ukraine that flew across the border and into Poland and then exploded on their territory. So it clearly was a Russian missile. Now today they're saying that it was a Russian missile, and they're summoning the Russian ambassador to ask him, why the devil did a Russian missile blow up in Poland? And now they're warning the citizens in their country that if another attack like that happens, they might not shoot the thing down, but just be ready, because it might blow up, you know, somewhere around you or right on top of your head. They are telling people to be aware of that sort of a threat. So a lot of people are wondering whether the missile really was intended for Poland or not. Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so we got a new piece of information today, which was a lot more concerning than we originally heard about the other day. Because we do know for a fact that one of those Russian missiles crossed over into Poland and it impacted in an open field. And now Poland is investigating it, and they confirmed it was a KH-101 missile from the Russian forces that hit inside of Polish territory, which was quite a significant escalation to say the least. But we learned that apparently 20 plus Russian missiles were actually flying toward Poland when that one missile crossed the border, and apparently the other 19 were shot down by the Ukrainian air defenses in the area. So it's begging the question, how many missiles were actually destined for Poland? Was there a lot more than just one that was destined for the area? Because, I mean, 20 missiles going toward one area in Lviv, that seems like overkill, at least in my personal opinion. So what are your thoughts about that? 61% said the missiles were intended for NATO, most likely, while 21% said the missiles were intended for Ukraine, and 11% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I have a distinct feeling that at least a couple of those missiles amongst the 20 were probably destined for Poland. The fact that one of them went so deep into Polish territory and hit near Lublin, I mean, that to me sounds very damning, to say the least. This could have been a much bigger attack that Russia was planning, and it might have been thwarted by the Ukrainian air defenses, thankfully. And thankfully it wasn't any bigger than what it was. So I would say I'm a little bit 50-50 on this one. We just don't know for a fact they were heading for Poland, but the fact they were all being fired that close to the border, 20-something missiles, and then one of them actually crossed over, I mean, it's not looking good, I mean, at the minimum. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that's not looking good either. I would generally be with a 60%. I think the missile truly was intended for NATO, and it's a smaller scale provocation ahead of the large scale provocations we're probably going to be seeing in a couple of months, or probably within the next couple of weeks at this point. Because it's trying to test the waters of how reactive NATO really is. Because given the fact that NATO isn't really reacting at all, this is giving a significant amount of leeway to the Russian Federation to really conduct whatever offensive actions they would like against NATO in a last-ditch wildcard effort to try and turn the situation in their favor. And generally, NATO looks like it is going to be quite slow to react. The Baltic states could get invaded. Like, here's the truth of it, folks. The Baltic states could legitimately get invaded by the Russian army, and as long as the Russians pull the trick they did in the Donbass down in 2014, where they strip off all of their insignia and they don't look like Russian soldiers, a lot of NATO countries might go, you know, we'll have to do an investigation on this. They might be Russian soldiers, but they also might just be, you know, separatists or something in these countries. We really need to study this. And that could be the response of NATO in a possibility. And Russia could quite literally see that there is no response from NATO at all. And I'm not one to try and, you know, fearmonger folks, but I'd have to say with the weakness and the spinelessness that we're watching from Western officials here in the United States and in Europe at this point, it is extremely concerning watching how little of a reaction there is to anything going on anymore. I mean, Russia fired a missile into Poland, and instead of Poland saying, if something like that happens again, we're going to make the Russian Federation regret it. Even just making the statement, even if they didn't even intend on following through, they're not even willing to make the statement. And that's how concerned they are about creating any sort of an escalation. So they'd rather sit there and go and you know, beat around the bush when everything's obvious. Oh, well, you know, it was definitely a Russian missile design, but we're not really sure if it was a Russian missile. It just happened to fly across the border from Ukraine into our country in the middle of a major attack that the Russians were conducting on Ukraine. And once we find out it's Russian, instead of making any significant threats or warnings to the Russians, we're just gonna, you know, kind of say, hey, why don't you call up your ambassador and have them explain to us why your missile blew up on our territory? Maybe, you know, there's a good explanation as to why that happened. And then play the whole situation down. They're not even invoking Article 4 over this one. I mean, Estonia invoked Article 4 over a MiG-31 just flying through their airspace for a minute. It's like the Polish aren't even willing to invoke Article 4 over a little world missile exploding on a farm field